Chapter 131 Invited by Both Beauties. That clear voice was extremely pleasant to listen to, but there was not the slightest bit of emotion within it. Those words were just like ice shards. Both Long Chen and Guoran turned to look at her with shock. Unbeknownst to them, Yi Zhiqiu had already arrived beside the two of them. Yi Zhiqiu's actions attracted everyone's attention. They all stopped conversing to watch. Everyone was filled with disbelief that Yi Zhiqiu would go out of her way to go invite Long Chen. She was called the Ice Beauty for a reason. She was extremely indifferent to others, and her words were few and far between. She rarely ever spoke with others. But now this Ice Beauty had invited Long Chen to join her. That was completely shocking. And of course, along with that shock was also an intense jealousy. Looking at Long Chen's sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes, he wasn't that eye-attracting. They couldn't help feeling upset. Their first thought was that the Ice Beauty had chosen an ordinary person. That had happened extremely suddenly. Guoran was the first to recover and hastily said, "I'm with the boss, so can I?" "You can come as well." Yi Zhiqiu's expression didn't fluctuate in the slightest. Guoran almost jumped in excitement. Pulling on the still blankly staring Long Chen, he said, "Boss, quickly thank Sister Zhiqiu." Only then did Long Chen recover from his shock. Shaking his head, he said, "I appreciate your kindness, Sister Yi, but I'm accustomed to being alone and I'm afraid it won't be convenient for you if I join you. I really am sorry." For a moment, anyone who heard that thought they had misheard. They looked at Long Chen like he was an idiot. Wasn't he too foolish? Guoran was on the verge of crying. He wanted to shout that he was willing, completely willing, but a complimentary subordinate like him didn't have the qualifications to agree to anything. He almost fainted. Hearing Long Chen's response, Yi Zhiqiu's expression didn't change in the slightest. Nodding, she didn't say anything else. It was as if Long Chen's refusal wasn't the slightest bit out of her expectations. Perhaps Sir should think about whether he wants to join this sister's faction. Just at this moment, a soft voice rang out. The beautiful fairy-like Tang Wan'er also had come over. A huge uproar exploded now. Just what kind of dog-shit luck did this kid have for these two beauties to both personally try to pull him in? Lei Qianshang's eyes narrowed as he icily glared at Long Chen. Although he didn't say anything, there was definitely fury within his eyes. Qi Exen was indifferently watching from the distance, his expression completely calm. But no one noticed that his hands were now tightly clenched into fists. Only Yu Zifeng was the most indifferent, frowning as he was lost in thought. "What? Do you not want to?" Tang Wan'er tilted her head slightly, dimples appearing as she laughed. Her bright gaze rippled over him, causing other people's hearts to jump. I want to. Long Chen hadn't even had a chance to reply before Guoran crazily shouted. They had already lost a chance just before. Now that fortune had come for them again, Guoran really might want to kill himself if he didn't grab this opportunity. Tang Wan'er indifferently glanced at Guoran and shook her head. "You're just an extra, so your word means nothing." Guoran's excitement was immediately extinguished. But he was still staring fixedly on Long Chen with a begging expression. Looking at this beauty, Long Chen also couldn't keep his heart from pounding. Tang Wan'er had a kind of special aura that was incredibly alluring. Even Long Chen wasn't an exception. But for some reason, he kept feeling this woman was familiar. Furthermore, he always had a kind of agitated feeling whenever he looked at her. In the end, Long Chen shook his head. To the side, Guoran almost fainted. He even had an urge to beat Long Chen. Shaking his head, Long Chen sighed, "I want to." As soon as he said those three words, Long Chen's expression immediately changed as he looked at Tang Wan'er with shock. A strange red light was currently fading from within her beautiful eyes. Heart-bewitching art. Long Chen was completely shocked. As soon as he had opened his mouth to decline, completely different words had naturally popped out. By the time he had realized, it was already too late. He really had never imagined Tang Wan'er to be a master in soul arts. Without being on guard against it, he had immediately been tricked. "Wow, wonderful! Congratulations on joining our faction." Tang Wan'er's beautiful eyes narrowed into two crescent moons in an exceptionally enchanting manner as she excitedly congratulated him. This isn't proper, Yi Zhiqiu lightly said to Tang Wan. She had managed to see through some clues. What's wrong about it? Everyone saw that he agreed with his own mouth to join my faction. Sister, do you want to fight with me? Laughed Tang Wan. Yi Zhiqiu stared at her for a while. Then glancing at Long Chen, she didn't say anything, simply bringing her faction away. Long Chen stared at this crafty Tang Wan and whispered, "You're too excessive. How can you use such a despicable method?" Tang Wan looked like a fox who had just stolen eggs as she was filled with pride of herself. Bringing her mouth closer to Long Chen, she used a voice only the two of them could hear. "Brat, where did that shameless heart you had back when you arrogantly scolded me go? Now that you've landed in my hands, hee." Tang Wan'er's voice was filled with a delight in getting revenge. "It's you!" Long Chen almost jumped up as he realized why he kept feeling this woman was familiar. That day when Long Chen had relieved himself in the river, she was the woman who had flown over and criticized him. Back then Tang Wan'er had been using her hand to cover her face and she had flown over to fast for Long Chen to notice her figure. Furthermore, not only was her face covered, but her voice had also been muffled slightly and filled with anger. So Long Chen had only felt that her voice was somewhat familiar. But now that she said this, Long Chen immediately realized who she was. He had an extremely bad feeling now. Perhaps he had really jumped into a trap now. Long Chen was just about to say something when Tang Wan'er interrupted him, predicting what he was about to say. "You've already agreed to join my faction. Unless I somehow fail to obtain a core disciple spot, it's impossible for you to back out now. If you forcibly try, you'll have violated the rules and be expelled from the monastery." Long Chen was shocked. There was such a stupid rule. Guo Ran hastily said, "Boss, please stop wasting time. It's such a rare thing for Sister Wan'er to come to us first. Now we're all on the same side. You're already one of us. We definitely won't treat you wrongly. You understand, right?" Tang Wan'er's last point about being treated wrongly had been said with a special meaning. To other people's eyes, Tang Wan'er was flirting with Long Chen, causing countless people's eyes to turn red. "Okay, now all my spots are filled. When I split up all the resources, there will definitely be a portion for you. I'm very optimistic for your future." Tang Wan'er laughed lightly as she walked away, leaving behind only a refreshing fragrance. Long Chen looked up to the sky at a loss. Just what kind of disaster have I created? How did I end up jumping into this girl's hands? Even just peeing brings me grudges. Isn't that too much? Long Chen felt he really was too unlucky. But compared to Long Chen, who was filled remorse over his actions, Guo Ran was smiling radiantly. "Boss, don't be like this. Do you know how many people want to beat you up for having such an expression?" Guo Ran's gaze swept over those jealous people who were about to go crazy. Long Chen didn't care about those gazes though. Were her words true? Once I choose a faction, I can't back out? It's true. The Xiantian Monastery has many rules, some of which really are odd. So you need to study up more in the future, solemnly said Guo Ran. Touching his spatial ring, he took out a scroll and handed it to Long Chen. "These are the Xiantian Monastery's 1087 rules. You should read through them carefully." Long Chen skimmed over it and saw that the Xiantian Monastery truly had many rules. For example, after joining a faction, you could not leave. That was to test their disciples' judgments and build loyalty. Men and women could form romantic relationships, but they had to maintain their chastity. For battles on the same level, it was forbidden to take the opponent's life or to cripple them in any way. However, challenges could be sent out whenever without any punishments. There were all kinds of different rules, some of which were so odd that Long Chen was dumbstruck. But after reading through it all, Long Chen understood that this was in order to increase the competition between disciples. That was a kind of selection by elimination. If your cultivation base was lacking, then you could only suffer other people bullying you here. Under that kind of endless humiliation, you either had to abruptly soar or completely collapse and be expelled. Long Chen could tell that these rules greatly favored the powerful. So if he wanted to live comfortably, he would have to work hard to make himself stronger so he could stand atop other people's heads. Long Chen might not like standing on top of others, but he also didn't like being trampled under by others. It was true that you couldn't always do as you liked. The main goal Long Chen had had in coming to the Xiantian monastery had been to gather medicinal ingredients. By relying on the sect, he wanted to gather everything he needed for the Alioth pill. After all, the larger a sect, the greater their inheritance and the chances of him obtaining rare medicinal ingredients would increase. Otherwise, the condensement of the second star was still an incredibly distant dream. The Xiantian monastery was a stepping stone for Long Chen to train in the 9-star Hegemon body art. Although he didn't know what level of technique the 9-star Hegemon body art had reached, he believed it definitely surpassed his wildest imaginations. Boss, let's go somewhere else. Being stared at by this many people always makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Although Yi Zhiqiu and Tang Wan'er had left, the majority of people were still just standing there. Those people were all glaring over here, most likely staring at Long Chen. Their gazes were filled with jealousy and provocation, filling Guoran with trepidation. Guoran definitely didn't have Long Chen's ability to stay unperturbed in front of this much hostility. Long Chen also didn't like being glared at by this many people. Brushing his butt, he brought little Snow into the distance. But they had only gone a mile when they were blocked by others. Brat, I'll give you one chance. Kneel down and apologize to my brother. A man icily blocked Long Chen's path. That man was tall and muscular with a powerful aura. Not far from him was a battered person. That was the youth who Long Chen had beat up. Be careful, boss. This is one of Qi Xian's people. His cultivation base is extremely powerful, whispered Guoran. Long Chen glanced at this person as well as the distant Qi Xian who was being revered by his group. He coldly smiled. If you don't want to die, then fuck off. I'm already really pissed. Long Chen shook his head. He really was pissed. Anyone who had fallen into a trap like he had would also be irritated. I don't care if you're pissed. How about I beat you until you feel better? A cruel smile appeared on that person's lips. He punched at him without any warning. With that single fist, he completely sealed off any of Long Chen's escape paths. Chapter 132 Little Snow vs. Qi Xian. That person's punch was incredibly powerful. It boomed like lightning, restraining others. This person was clearly an expert. Long Chen coldly snorted and was just about to move when a roar came from below him and a huge claw reached out to block it. Little Snow. Long Chen was surprised. He was connected to Little Snow's soul, and so Little Snow could sense Long Chen's fury. Boom. Little Snow's claw collided with that person's fist, causing terrifying energy to explode out. With a muffled shout, that person was sent flying. Little Snow was a third-rank magical beast, and even amongst third-rank magical beasts he was exceptional. Although not specializing in power, he wasn't something that person could withstand. Little Snow opened his mouth and spat out a wind blade that sliced apart even space. That wind blade went straight for that horrified person. No, Little Snow. Long Chen was greatly alarmed. But it was already too late as Little Snow's attack had already been shot out. Little Snow could sense Long Chen's anger, but he didn't have Long Chen's wisdom. Little Snow didn't know what it meant to have misgivings, and so he directly shot out a wind blade. That huge wind blade was like a death god sickle. An ear-piercing sound came from it as it shot over. Even the land was shaking, causing everyone to be terrified. No one had expected Long Chen's magical beast to take action on its own. And it was even more shocking that this magical beast was at the 3rd rank, and was even a terrifying existence even amongst 3rd rank magical beasts. Other people's magical beasts had soul imprints on them so that they wouldn't dare disobey their master's orders. But Little Snow wasn't the same. Long Chen had formed a kind of companionship between the two, which wasn't really a contract. Thus, Little Snow had his own thinkings. It was precisely because his soul had no restrictions that Little Snow could grow so quickly and possess such great power. Once a magical beast had a soul imprint placed on them, their combat ability would sharply decline, perhaps even greater than 50%. But that was something that couldn't be avoided, as magical beasts devouring their masters was not an uncommon affair. No one dared to do as Long Chen did. So Little Snow's attack wasn't like another steed's attack, but a true third-rank magical beast's attack. That person's face turned green from fear because he was horrified to notice that it felt as if his body had been ensnared in mud, and taking even a single step had become difficult, let alone dodging. Everyone present let out startled cries. If this continued, that person would definitely die. The monastery definitely did not allow disciples to kill each other. In a distant forest, Tang Wan'er, who had just been watching the ruckus, was given a fright. She had only just been planning on getting revenge on Long Chen and hadn't noticed that he had a third-rank magical beast by his side. This is bad. Although she found Long Chen crude and irritating, maybe even feeling some resentment, Tang Wan'er didn't want him to be expelled just like this. Spirit Water Shield. Suddenly an icy shout rang as a figure appeared before the wind blade. Extending his hand, a huge, blue shield immediately appeared. The shield was 10 meters in diameter and was somehow formed from water. It looked just like half a huge water drop. Bang! The wind blade collided with the water shield. Water droplets splashed out hundreds of meters. When the rain of water finally fell, people recognized who had appeared. Chi Exin. People let out startled cries as the person who had blocked the wind blade had actually been Chi Exin. Seeing that Chi Exin had managed to block Little Snow's attack, Long Chen sighed in relief. But at the same time, he was greatly shocked. He truly was a monster-class figure. He was actually able to block Little Snow's attack. You're just relying on a house pet. It's not worth anything. Chi Exin indifferently glanced at Long Chen. His words were said definitely in act. For him to say such a thing after blocking Little Snow's terrifying attack, Long Chen was certain he was just trying to act strong. A powerful house pet is also a part of one's strength. Could it be that if you weren't able to break through your opponent's armor, you'd demand they had to take off their armor and pants? Even idiocy should have its own limits. With just your intelligence, you also have intentions on Tang Wan'er. You're clearly a martial artist, yet you put on a scholarly costume. Why don't you take imperial exams instead of wasting your time here? Do you know what it means to be a sissy? Do you know what it means to be a pretentious fool? Looking at your expression now, I'd say you're understanding a bit. Long Chen's rude ridicule caused the entire crowd to be deathly silent. No one would have thought Long Chen had the boldness to scold a monster-class genius. Hiding in the forest, Tang Wan'er, who was secretly watching, couldn't stop herself from laughing and hastily covered her mouth. Although this Long Chen is also extremely hateful, that Chi Exin also isn't some good person, he's a complete hypocrite. This must be what it means for evil people to attract other evil people. Tang Wan'er muttered to herself. The two maidens following beside her glanced at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Tang Wan'er might be laughing, but Guoran wanted to cry. He even had some regret in making Long Chen the boss. He had an urge to bash in his own head. After he had completely refused to join Yijichio's faction only to then join Tang Wan'er, Guoran had thought Long Chen had finally fixed his head and was overjoyed. But as soon as they had joined Tang Wan'er faction, they had immediately received an attack from another monster-class figure. Just what was this boss Long Chen doing? Chi Exin's face was dark. In all these years, not even the elders in his family had dared say even half these things to him. And outside his family, he was an object of worship, so when would he ever have to receive such ridicule? For you to provoke me like this, do you know how much suffering will be the price? Icily asked Chi Exin. Provoking? I'd never do something so senseless. Being jealous of a romantic rival, fighting stupidly, acting like a strong fool, those are all things only an idiot like you likes to do. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't do such things. Long Chen shook his head extremely modestly. Everyone felt their hearts become cold. Just what background did this kid have to ridicule Chi Exin so brazenly? Wasn't he planning on growing within the Xiantian monastery? Was he stupid, or did he really have the strength to back up such words? Arrogant brat, let me see if you have the qualifications to say such a thing. Even if Chi Xian possessed even more restraint, he still wouldn't be able to endure such ridicule. That was especially the case when it was in front of this many people. If he didn't teach Long Chen a lesson, his reputation would drop to an all-time low. Coldly snorting, Chi Xian began to slowly walk towards Long Chen. With each step, his aura slowly rose. Even the ground began to tremble with each step he took. Everyone knew Chi Xian had been infuriated this time. His current aura was even more terrifying than when he had been fighting against Lei Qiansheng. Speaking of which, Lei Qiansheng and Yu Zifeng were both present. Now they were carefully watching, wanting to see just what kind of trump cards Long Chen had to dare provoke Chi Xian. The stealthily watching Tang Wanner hesitated for a moment but still didn't decide to come out, muttering to herself, "It's not as if either of these two are good people. He won't be beaten so easily, so it's better to just keep watching for a while." Originally Tang Wanner had just been planning on playing a trick on Long Chen, looking to see if either Lei Qiansheng or Chi Xian would take action to find trouble for Long Chen. After all, who had asked him to curse and scold her? But this matter had blown up greater than she had ever imagined and was now out of her control. If Long Chen truly was beaten seriously because of her, she also would feel sorry for him. But she had a faint feeling that Long Chen wasn't that easy to deal with, and so she wanted to watch for a while first. Seeing what was going on, everyone quickly withdrew. No one wanted to be implicated or injured during their fight. After all, that was a monster-class expert. "Guoran, you should also withdraw. No need to fight with me." Long Chen saw that Guoran was still right behind and hadn't retreated him. He truly was moved that Guoran would stay. Not anyone would dare to face off against a monster-class expert. "Boss, I want to leave, but my legs have turned to mush. I can't walk." Guoran wanted to cry. "Oh my God." Long Chen kicked Guoran in the butt, sending him flying hundreds of meters away. After kicking Guoran away, Long Chen jumped onto Little Snow's back and arrogantly said to Chi Xian, "Come at me, kid. I know you like acting, so I'll let you realize that your skill is far too lacking and your acting just makes you look like a fool." Chi Xian snorted and stamped on the ground, charging at Long Chen like a sharp blade. But as soon as he moved, a wind blade shot at him from Little Snow. Although the power wasn't as great as last time, Chi Xian didn't dare take it head-on. There was no need for him to take Little Snow head-on. He just needed to subdue Long Chen. Chi Xian dodged to the side, but as soon as he dodged, another wind blade shot over. He could only once more dodge and was unable to advance anymore. What shocked Chi Xian was that Long Chen was just sitting on Little Snow's back, telling him to shoot out more wind blades. Although each individual wind blade didn't have much power, they were extremely numerous, causing his movements to be a mess. Watching Chi Xian dodge left and right, Long Chen suddenly loudly announced, "Everyone watching, there's a monkey performing a show here. Those who have money should offer some payment for the show. I won't mind getting a couple thousand gold coins, but if you only have 1 or 2 to spare, that's also fine. Look at how amazing this dance is, that's somersault. Let me tell you, this isn't something that can be achieved without years of dedication and drilling." Atop Little Snow, Long Chen continued controlling Little Snow's attacks while commenting on Chi Xian's dance as he dodged. Everyone's eyes bulged as they saw him treat Chi Xian as a monkey putting on a play. "Kid, you're asking for it." Chi Xian was finally truly infuriated. Water chi exploded out of his body and filled the sky. His water chi was like a translucent casing over his body. It completely blocked all of Little Snow's wind blades and he charged at Long Chen. "Little Snow, be a bit more vicious," coldly snorted Long Chen. To increase the frequency of Little Snow's attack, the power had to be dropped. But now that Chi Xian was charging over, he let Little Snow use his unique skills as he wished. Little Snow roared, his fur standing on end as a terrifying power exploded out of him. Opening his mouth, a round sphere shot out straight at Chi Xian. Chapter 133 Beginning of the Trial. That sphere of light was only a foot thick. On the outside, it looked like it was formed from countless strands of thread. But those weren't threads, but countless, thin wind blades. It was as if countless blades had been compressed into a ball. Furthermore, within that sphere was a red liquid incessantly circulating. It was extremely odd. That sphere shot out completely straight. All the withered leaves and branches it passed by immediately turned to ashes. As it whistled over, the terrifying gales coming from it carved a long scar into the ground. Even Long Chen was shocked. Although Little Snow had told Long Chen he had his own special moves now, this was the first time he had seen one. This Chiexin, he better block it head-on. If he dodges, I'll really be screwed over, Long Chen incessantly prayed inside. Chiexin turned pale from fright in the face of this attack. He almost choked, sensing it was a grave threat to him. Sky water protecting the body. Chiexin shouted, and his spiritual chi circulating. That ball of water surrounding him changed. Strange lines spread across it, turning it into a veined pearl. Boom. Chiexin had only just managed to set that up when Little Snow's attack struck him. His attack was just like a meteorite striking the ball of water. Heaven and earth lost all color. Time seemed to slow down. Everyone felt as if the world was no longer as real as before. Suddenly, some people let out startled cries and quickly jumped back. That was because the land had instead become a tide of water that was rapidly spreading. Those who were closer were directly swallowed by a wave of mud, coughing up blood as they were pushed further away. For a moment, everyone was fleeing for their lives. Within an area of over a mile, there was no longer anyone else present. That region had been flattened dozens of meters. At the center of the depressed circle was a deep crater. On one side was Long Chen atop Little Snow, looking at Chiexin. The current Chiexin's hair was a mess and his clothes had also been torn. Even his aura was slightly chaotic. Obviously, blocking that attack had cost a great deal of energy. Although he might look down on Chiexin's personality, Long Chen had no choice but to admit that Chiexin truly was too strong. That attack of Little Snow's had contained a merger of both wind and flame. The explosive power that resulted from that merger could destroy mountains. Just from looking at the completely destroyed region around them, it was possible to see just how powerful it had been. But such a powerful blow had been blocked by Chiexin. Furthermore, he wasn't even injured. That kind of strength was too shocking. "How is it? Do you want to keep putting on a show?" asked Long Chen. "If it weren't for your magical beast protecting you, I could kill you with a single slap," raged Chiexin. Although he said, Chiexin was actually filled with horror. He had never expected that white wolf to have such a powerful attack. "So what? Didn't I just say that a magical beast was also a part of person's strength? By putting it like this, are you saying you're not even as good as magical beast?" With such a powerful magical beast, you're clearly just relying on your family's power. Only a spoiled brat would shot off like this, sneered Chiexin. "You can show off too. Come, bring out your magical beast and show everyone," shrugged Long Chen. Chiexin's face darkened as his steed was just a second-rank magical beast. It was true that his family did possess third-rank magical beasts, but they were precious military powers that couldn't be easily moved out. Furthermore, those magical beasts weren't flying ones, and so it wouldn't have been convenient to bring them on this journey. If he really did bring out his magical beast now, it would be swatted to death in a single blow by Long Chen's Snow Wolf. Although he was born in a large clan, even just a second-rank magical beast was extremely valuable. He couldn't let it die for nothing, and so he was mute in response to Long Chen's provocation. Long Chen's meaning was obvious. Even if he himself was weak, with the pressure from such a steed, who would dare easily attack him? That truly infuriated Chiexin. Although his combat ability was high, his actual realm was low. That was because he had to keep himself suppressed at the peak of blood condensation. If he entered the muscle rebirth realm, he definitely wouldn't fear Long Chen's Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf. The atmosphere was now extremely awkward. Chiexin wanted to attack, but he also was intimidated. Little Snow was a magical beast, and so it was extremely likely it was capable of using such a powerful attack again. But Chiexin didn't dare take such an attack again. Even if he was more arrogant, he wouldn't want to continuously receive such blows. That wouldn't be prideful, it'd be just asking for death. But for him to retreat, that would be a great blow to his fame. How would he face those who relied on him? If it was to Lei Qianshang or Tang Wana, then it would have been fine. They were experts on the same level, so it wouldn't cause him to lose any face. But if he were to continue losing in front of this nameless youth, that would definitely be too embarrassing for him. In this current situation, he couldn't retreat, yet he also couldn't continue. Thus, Qi Xian was in an impossible position. Deep in the forest, Tang Wana was watching. In her eyes, Long Chen was acting like a spoiled brat, but she smiled. This scoundrel does possess some ability to force Qi Xian into such a plight. As for your debt for offending me, we'll have to settle that slowly. For some unknown reason, watching Long Chen gave her a kind of unknown excitement. Perhaps life in the Shantian monastery would not be as dry and dull as she had thought it would be. Dong! Just at this moment, a loud, melodious bell rang out in everyone's ears, causing everyone to become excited. The trial's begun. Let's hurry over. No one cared any longer about Long Chen and Qi Xian's battle. They all hurried towards the end of the valley. Qi Xian was relieved to hear that bell. Coldly glancing at Long Chen, he said, "I'll remember you. I'll definitely give you some extra care in the monastery." After saying, he didn't even give Long Chen a chance to reply before rushing over with the crowd. Those people who were originally waiting with him also followed behind him. Even at this time, he still didn't forget to act bravely. Long Chen shook his head. Jumping atop Little Snow, he gently rubbed Little Snow's head. "It's all thanks to you. Otherwise the person to lose face would very likely be me." "Ooh," Little Snow rubbed Long Chen with his huge head. "Hee, okay, I know you still have more special moves. But we can't kill anyone here. You have to restrain yourself a bit," he gently comforted Little Snow. At this time Guoran had already hobbled over to Long Chen's side. Long Chen lightly said, "Don't act like you're so in need of pity." Guoran laughed mischievously and gave him a thumbs up. "Boss, you really are something. Even someone like Qi Xian was helpless to deal with you." "Sigh, that was only because of Little Snow. Let's hurry up and get to the trial." Long Chen and Guoran followed the flow of people. Exiting the valley, they arrived at a wide, open space. There were tens of thousands of registrants who had already arrived. Each person also had a magical beast obediently lying down behind them. With interweaving humans and huge magical beasts over this open land, it was an extremely spectacular sight. At the front was a huge gate 300 meters high. It was extremely magnificent and exuded an ancient air. Atop the gate were the following bold and ancient characters: Shantian Monastery. The words were written in a bright gold. It appeared that this grand gate was the entrance to the Shantian Monastery. But Long Chen couldn't see just where that loud bell sound had come from. Suddenly that huge gate began to slowly open. A large entrance tens of meters high opened up like a huge beast's mouth. When that gate opened, an extremely dense spiritual qi poured over. Amazing! Long Chen thought to himself. This gate should be able to keep spiritual qi on the inside. Then that means this huge gate must be part of some grand formation. No wonder all these people would work to join the Shantian monastery at all costs. Just this kind of dense spiritual qi is enough to allow their cultivation speeds to multiply. Following the opening of the huge gate, a group of people walked out. They appeared to be in their 20s. They were all indifferently looking over these registrants. The person at the front was wearing black robes. This serious man's gaze roved around, giving a sense that he was extremely capable and experienced. After looking over this large group, he said, "First let me introduce myself. I am the attendant in charge of welcoming you all and am also in charge of the trial to enter the monastery. There is also another status I have. All of us are your senior apprentice brothers. In other words, we are all registrants who came last time. 3 years ago we were just like you. We also stood there as the previous generation welcomed us." Many people were surprised that the people to welcome them would be the previous generation's disciples. But Guoran was completely calm. He had clearly already known about this. Once the crowd quietened down, that person continued. 3 years ago we were the same as you, filled with dreams and expectations. But now I will pour some ice water over your fires. This place is not at all the same as what you imagine. This place is extremely cruel. It won't be at all the same as your days in your families. This place is a hell, and so if you want to retreat, there is still a chance now. Hearing those grim words, a bad feeling immediately arose in everyone's hearts. Excuse me, but amongst the previous generation of senior apprentice brothers, are you few the only ones who remain? Said one brave registrant. Yes. All the more powerful ones have already left, leaving behind only us. That is because in our generation, we can only pad the bottom. So it's just cannon fodder people. Why'd they have to act so grand? Some people quietly gave those people an evaluation. The reverence that they had all mostly faded away. That person smiled slightly and didn't react at all to that, seeming to have expected it. Sweeping his gaze over everyone, he nodded. The time has arrived. Take out your registration cards. We'll be going over everyone one by one. Everyone hastily took out their registration cards. That group of 20-something men split up to examine them. Suddenly one person pointed at a registrant. Where'd you get your registration card? That person panicked slightly, but he immediately hid that up and icily said, It was given to me by your monastery. Do you not even recognize it? This registration card isn't yours. Although you've changed your appearance, you can't trick me. You're someone who killed for someone else's registration card. That person's face immediately blanched. Without even thinking about, he punched out at that person. But that fist was just a fake as he had already retreated, trying to flee. As for the man who had found him out, he smiled ridiculing and slowly raised his hand. That fleeing registrant was immediately horrified to realize he wouldn't move anymore. Most strangely of all was that his body began to float into midair. He wildly struggled and shouted, but he was unable to escape from that strange force. Die! Blood rained down as that late blood condensation expert exploded in midair just like that. Chapter 134 Doused with ice water. Blood filled the air. It was almost like a red firework. The bloody mist slowly blew away with the wind. A late blood condensation genius died just like this without leaving a corpse. Although the mist of blood had disappeared, the faint smell of blood filled everyone's noses. No one had expected that these calm and indifferent senior apprentice brothers to be so ruthless. As soon as they took action, they took someone's life. Everyone was greatly shaken. Long Chen was also startled. But he wasn't surprised because of that person's death, but because of that senior apprentice brother. That attack had been too strange. He had someone circulated his spiritual qi to a kind of pinnacle and released it out of his body, allowing him to kill the fake registrant from a distance. But most shocking to Long Chen was that wasn't even a battle skill, but simply showed off that person's skill in using his own spiritual qi. Just controlling your spiritual qi in a free manner within your body was already difficult enough. But to be able to release it outside your body and still have such control was too shocking. Without revealing the slightest bit of his cultivation base, he indifferently killed a genius. That kind of strength definitely struck fear in their hearts. During the uproar that followed that person's miserable death, suddenly 3 figures dashed out of the crowd. At first people were startled, but they quickly realized those 3 must have also done similar things the previous one had done. Seeing that the situation had turned sour, they decided to flee for their lives. That man who was standing at the head of the seniors sneered. With a cold snort, he pointed and a formless ray of qi shot out like a sharp blade. He pointed 3 times. Those 3 people that were hundreds of meters away were all pierced through and immediately lied. The entire crowd was completely silent for a moment. Previously there had even been people who had disdainfully considered them to be just cannon fodder. Now everyone was truly given a fright, especially the one who had said his taunt. His expression was deathly pale. Okay, let's continue. The head senior ordered everyone to continue their inspections. They carefully went one by one. Even those as powerful as Lei Qianshang, Qi Exin, and the others were all extremely obedient now. They might be arrogant, but they weren't idiots. After all, these people were their senior apprentice brothers. Even if they were just existences that padded the bottom rankings, having cultivated in the Shantian monastery for the last 3 years, there was no way they were comparable anymore. At the same time as they were filled with respect, they were also filled with anticipation. These people that padded the bottom ranks had already grown to such an extent. The Shantian monastery's true power truly was terrifying. When that man had attacked, he had done a careful examination and was awed to see that that person's cultivation base was only in the muscle rebirth realm. In other words, it was the same cultivation base as the white-robed man he had faced in Phoenix Cry. But in terms of combat strength, one person was in the heavens while one was still stuck on the ground. The distance really was just that great. He had seen through that those last 3 attacks had been reliant on a battle skill. However, it also didn't seem like a particularly profound battle skill. Most likely it was below the Earth class. But even such an ordinary battle skill had had such a shocking effect in that person's hands. Most importantly, there hadn't been any obvious pause between his 3 attacks. Most people would require at least a moment to adjust their breathing after each attack before attacking again. It was like jump rope. After jumping once, you had to wait till you landed and reset before once more jumping again. It might be possible for people to attack 3 times in a row, but that would be a torrential storm of blows. With the jump rope analogy, it would be equivalent to a person jumping once and spinning the rope 3 times. Although it was extremely difficult, some geniuses were capable of just managing it. But that man hadn't done it like that. He had done it not too quickly and also extremely easily without the slightest haste. It obviously had something to do with his cultivation method. This time I really did come to the right place. This Shantian monastery is just like a treasure house. Long Chen's heart pounded fervently. Finally one of them arrived in front of Long Chen and inspected his registration card. Huh. That person's expression changed slightly. Carefully looking over it again, he looked up at Long Chen with confusion. That person's movements caused Guoran, who was right beside, to almost leap to Long Chen's defense. There was nothing wrong with his boss's registration card. His movements also attracted the attention of quite a few others. That was because Long Chen was in the last row. The ones ahead of him had already finished being inspected and were now just watching. Tang Wanna looked over in shock. Had this scoundrel really stolen his registration card? Thinking of Long Chen's attitude, which didn't fear heaven or earth, it really might be possible for him to do such a thing. Would Long Chen be killed now? Only Lei Qianshang and Qi Exin were completely indifferent as they watched. Qi Exin especially was laughing, hoping this person would kill Long Chen with a single blow like the others. Senior apprentice brother Wan, take a look at this registration card. That person sent Long Chen's registration card to that attendant. Senior apprentice brother Wan received it and was also slightly startled. Raising his head to look at Long Chen, he asked, "You're Long Chen?" Long Chen could only nod. He was somewhat bewildered. He had no enmity with Elder Tu Feng, so he shouldn't have done anything to harm him. What he didn't know was that his registration card had an extremely particular pattern on it. Outsiders didn't know what that pattern was. Each registration card would have a particular pattern. They would all look identical, but in truth there were minute differences. In some places of the pattern, the lines would be longer or shorter, thicker or thinner. Those places recorded the registrant's basic information. That was confidential information in the Shantian monastery that others wouldn't know. And so when others foolishly managed to steal away a registration card and thought they could join, the result was always what had just occurred. It was precisely because that person had seen something he absolutely could not believe on Long Chen's registration card that he had ended up calling over senior apprentice brother Wan for an explanation. Yes? Is there a problem? Long Chen nodded. Senior apprentice brother Wan shook his head. There's no problem. You aren't bad. Long Chen's heart relaxed greatly. He nodded. As expected, heroes really do think alike. I also think I'm really not bad. Senior apprentice brother Wan looked at Long Chen oddly, as if he wasn't used to Long Chen's style of speaking. Tang Wanner couldn't hold back a smile. Long Chen really did have thick skin. But what none of them understood was the hidden meaning behind senior apprentice brother Wan's "not bad." He had said that because Long Chen's registration card had a certain piece of information that was completely inconceivable. Spirit root, none. Each registration card recorded a registrant's height, appearance, age, spirit root, talent, and a dozen other pieces of information. Having spent 3 years in the monastery, senior apprentice brother Wan's understanding on the monastery had reached an extremely high level. This was the first time he had ever heard of a person with no spirit root obtaining a registration card. But then he saw that this registration card was Elder Tufong's. Just the other day, he had told him that he had given a certain youth his registration card and not to accidentally expel him. He had been extremely curious then just why he would say such a thing. Why would he expel someone who had managed to obtain the enforcement elder's registration card? But now when he saw Long Chen, he finally understood what Elder Tufong had meant. If it wasn't for his previous reminder, he really might have to go check with him to see if this registration card was real. Within the secular world, there were only 3 spirit root grades: low, medium, and high. There were also trash spirit roots. The spirit root was the core of the Dantian. It was something you were innately born with, and how far you could grow was entirely decided by the quality of your spirit root. It was just like a seed. How far it could grow was dependent on what kind of seed it was. A weed would never be able to grow into a huge tree. And so a person's limit was largely based on their spirit root. Most people who had low-grade spirit roots could only ever reach the blood condensation realm. As for a middle-grade spirit root, that meant it was possible for them to reach the muscle rebirth realm. Only high-grade spirit roots had a chance of breaking through the muscle rebirth barrier and entering the bone-forging realm. As for the Xiantian monastery, its selection of disciples was extremely strict. They refused to accept anyone with either low, middle, or high-grade spirit roots. The disciples they recruited had to have bronze-grade spirit roots at the least. That was an existence that had surpassed the secular world's classifications. That was because in the cultivation world, only those with at least bronze-grade spirit roots had a chance of truly shining. Above bronze grade was silver, then gold, and then the legendary dark gold class spirit root. Only geniuses with these 4 grades of spirit roots had the qualifications to be nourished with the full power of a sect. Essentially every registrant here possessed a bronze-grade spirit root. Only a couple possessed a silver-grade spirit root. But amongst the disciples this time, there was a certain demon who possessed a golden spirit root. Senior apprentice brother Wan had just come over from examining that monster's registration card and was still shook. But now looking at this disciple who didn't even have a spirit root, that was even more shocking than when he had seen that demon. Having been in the Xiantian monastery for years, he knew who the enforcement elder. He was an extremely high existence, the one with the greatest strength other than the sect leader. Furthermore, he was also very strict and upright, earning him the respect of the disciples. Such a figure definitely wouldn't randomly give his registration card away. Senior apprentice brother Wan stealthily examined Long Chen. His aura was completely concealed, however. Now even the slightest bit of it leaked out, making him seem like nothing more than a secular mortal. It had to be known that even he who had bitterly cultivated for so many years and whose control over spiritual qi had reached a pinnacle was still incapable of suppressing his aura to that point. Furthermore, even if he did seem like a mortal, he was still able to indifferently stand his pressure. That meant Long Chen was definitely not ordinary, and that was why he had praised him with a not bad. Handing back the registration card to Long Chen, he then finished up with a couple others. Waving his hand, a large pile of palm-sized jade tiles appeared on the ground. Fess tiles also had some words written on them. Hand out these tiles. The tiles were handed out, one to each person. After receiving one, Long Chen examined this palm-sized, completely square tile. His had the word Tian on it. Glancing over at Guo ran to his side, he saw his tablet had the word Huang on it. He didn't know what was going on. Boss, this is our proof of trial. We're about to enter a cruel elimination. I don't know whether we can pass, Guoran worriedly said. Long Chen was startled and about to ask for a clarification when senior apprentice brother Wan continued. Take care of your jade tiles. The trial is about to commence. But first I must warn you that amongst those present, at least 75% of you will be eliminated. To be clear, a mortal, in this case, refers to someone who does not cultivate. So mortal equals non-cultivator. It doesn't mean cultivators are immortal. Technically, the individual words mean normal person, but the term translates as mortal. Sometimes when characters reach higher levels, they even call cultivators who are at much lower cultivation levels mortals, because they are so weak they are basically non-cultivators in front of them. Chapter 135 Divergent. The majority of these registrants were astonished. A 75% elimination? That was too much, wasn't it? In other words, amongst the more than 30,000 people present, less than 8,000 of them could pass. The rest would all be eliminated. A chill descended over them. Although they had heard that the Xiantian Monastery's disciple selection was extremely harsh, they had never thought it had reached such a level. Although the majority of people were shocked and worried, the stronger ones only indifferently smiled. They had the self-confidence to pass this trial. The Xiantian Monastery truly was ruthless enough. Just from the start of the trial, everyone could already tell how cruel the competition was in the monastery. Each one of you has a jade tile with one of 4 words on them: Tian, Di, Xian, Huang. Once you enter the area for the trial, you'll need to collect all 4 of them in order to pass. As for how you collect them, there's no need to dance around it. I trust everyone here is smart enough to know how to gather them, lightly said senior apprentice brother Wan. Is this a mistake? Isn't this just you guys playing us like we're monkeys? You want us to massacre ourselves? That's not fair. Someone angrily shouted out. That person came from a small power. There he was counted as someone with both power and respect. He would never receive such treatment there. But once he had come here, he had seen far too many powerful figures. He had realized that he was merely an existence that could only pad the bottom rankings. Now he learned the trial was a huge fight and scramble between everyone. With his power, he didn't have the slightest hope of passing, and so he indignantly shouted out that it wasn't fair. Fair? Does this world have anything that is fair? You spoiled disciples, you've all been given the best resources and medicinal pills to cultivate. You even had experts temper and cleanse your bodies. Is that fair to those martial artists who are born poor and desolate? Remember, within the Xiantian Monastery, there is no fairness. Even the monastery's rules favor the powerful. This is a river of struggle. If you have the capability, then swim to the front. And if you don't, then just obediently lie under other people's feet. If you have no skill and you also don't want to feel wronged, then just get lost. The Xiantian Monastery has limited resources and doesn't raise trash, icily shouted senior apprentice brother Wan. Long Chen nodded. His words were completely correct. If a sect wanted to grow, it required powerful disciples to mature. Those cannon fodders were just wasting resources, slowing down the sect's development. Although his words were difficult to accept, it was an indisputable fact that there was never anything known as fairness within this world. These spoiled young masters who had only known peace and comfort within their families were unable to understand the cruelness of reality. Hey, if you don't have any skill, then just fuck off. But before you leave, hand over your jade tile to me, disdainfully said another registrant, perhaps hoping to gain a slight advantage. Fuck, I won't hand it over to a bastard like you, angrily raged that person. How would it possible for him to obediently hand over his jade tile? Okay, then just wait for me. Once I find you, we'll see if you still have the same resolution. The other one also wasn't some tolerant person. Quiet, icily shouted senior apprentice brother Wan. They both shut up. In any case, I hope you properly take care of your jade tile. There are only a total of 7,963 sets. If you feel like you have no hope, you can always destroy your jade tile or throw it into a ditch. If you can't advance, then you can at least make it so that 3 others are also unable to advance with you. Although that doesn't benefit you in the slightest, it'll at least count as venting some anger, said Senior Apprentice Brother 1. Quite a few people's eyes brightened as they thought, what a good idea. If I have no hope, then you guys can also give up any thoughts of advancing either. Long Chen couldn't help shaking his head. This Senior Apprentice Brother 1 really was pitiless. But he understood that the Xiantian Monastery's selection of disciples was not an ordinary level of difficulty. But the more it was like this, the stronger the disciples that remained would become. They would become the best existences to groom. The important thing was to make sure he was one of them. Guo Ran, are you confident? Long Chen wasn't worried about himself. But he did feel that perhaps Guo Ran was a bit too weak for this. Although he had perceptive eyes, no matter how he looked at him, he didn't seem like an expert. After the start of the trial, everything would rely on strength. Don't worry, boss. I've long since made my preparations. When he saw that no one was looking at him, his worried expression disappeared. Oh, you have a plan? Hee, I won't hide it from boss. I didn't just gather all that information for nothing. Amongst the many medicinal pills I gathered, there are several which others would do anything for. There are many people who are about to wash out here. As long as I use my glib tongue, I can easily persuade them to exchange their tile for medicinal pills. Guo Ran laughed confidently. Even that was accepted? Long Chen really hadn't imagined there was such a method. But with the high washout rate, Guo Ran's method truly might be effective. What if someone comes to fight with you over the tiles? Suddenly asked Long Chen. According to what Senior Apprentice 1 had just said, these tiles couldn't be placed into spatial rings. If they were, the word on top of them would disappear, which would equal failure. Hee boss, don't worry. I've long since made preparations. I was just acting just now for others. I've already prepared all my escape plans. But on the other hand, I'm worried for you. Although the trial zone is extremely enormous, there's still an off chance you might run into Qi Xin. And it's not just Qi Xin. Even Lei Qianshang doesn't like you now. If he really does want to force you out, it'd be impossible for you to pass, worriedly said Guo Ran. That was a bit troublesome, but Long Chen wasn't that worried. Although their strengths were terrifying to others, Long Chen wasn't afraid of them. If he really did end up forced to fight them, it wasn't sure just who should be fearing who. At this point, we're entering the trial section. All your magical beasts must be put away. Send them back to your families. No one is allowed to bring a magical beast into the monastery. Long Chen was startled by Senior Apprentice Brother 1's order. There was even such a rule? Other people had people from their households who would bring their magical beasts back, but Long Chen didn't. Little Snow definitely couldn't part with him. But since the trial was about to start, he could only quietly whisper a few things to Little Snow. Hearing Long Chen's orders, Little Snow quietly growled and walked off alone. Okay, the rules have already been explained. The lines carved into the back of your tiles are your map. After entering the trial region, just insert your spiritual energy into the tile and you'll be able to tell your position. The method is the same as the one for opening a spatial ring. Are there any other questions? Senior Apprentice Brother 1 looked over everyone. Seeing no one say anything, he nodded. Then get ready for the trial. Remember, it is prohibited to maliciously kill others in the trial region. If you do, you will immediately be eliminated. Send them off. Following Senior Apprentice Brother 1's cold shout, their jade tiles suddenly became hot. Their bodies became light as the scenery around them twisted. Long Chen was completely astonished. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing. Before he understood what was happening, the space around him brightened and he arrived within a valley. What dense spiritual qi! The surrounding spiritual qi here was like a spring wind blowing around him. Even without deliberately cultivating, just by breathing he could feel himself quickly advancing. Examining his surroundings, he saw he was at the bottom of a valley. Just below him was a slow, babbling creek. Senior Apprentice Brother 1 said there were countless opportunities within this region. First I'll take a look. In any case, the trial will continue for a month. As long as I find a full set of tiles before the time is up, it'll count as a pass. Long Chen gathered his thoughts. Examining the tiles map and figuring out where he was, he disappeared from his original location. Atop a distant mountain there was an enormous tree. Atop its huge, heaven-reaching crown were two people. One of them was the one who had given Long Chen his registration card, Tu Feng. As for the other, he appeared to be in his 30s. His face was graceful and natural, and there was a simple long sword on his back. Within his eyes was a peaceful expression. This man was the Xiantian Monastery's #1 expert, the sword expert who had become famous 300 years ago, Ling Yunzi. That person is Long Chen? He asked. Yes. Originally, I wasn't planning on giving him the registration card, but for some unknown reason I kept feeling he would really one day grow to become an outstanding existence, and so I still gave it to him, said Tu Feng. Ah, congratulations, Tu Feng. That proves you are becoming increasingly closer to the heavenly Daos. Your breakthrough to Xiantian is only a matter of time, smiled Ling Yunzi. Why do you say that? Asked Tu Fan with surprise. Only once you have approached the heavenly Daos will you sense a couple secrets of the unseen world. That is a sign you about to advance to Xiantian. Even I only began to have such feelings over 100 years ago. And so I am sure that your advancement to Xiantian is only a matter of time, said Ling Yunzi. Then sect leader's meaning is that Long Chen? Probingly asked Tu Feng. Yes. His dantian is completely still, but his blood and qi are like a roaring dragon. His physical body is comparable to a third-rank magical beast. That is completely beyond common sense. But most inconceivable of all is that his energy is all gathered and hidden away within his left foot. Once that hidden energy explodes out, his strength will multiply. Ling Yunzi watched Long Chen. Ah, as expected of the sect leader. I could only see that his dantian had no spirit root. I had no idea his energy was all concealed in his foot, admiringly praised Tu Feng. I couldn't see it clearly. I could only vaguely sense it. And furthermore, I was only able to do so because Long Chen's cultivation base is low and is only at what seems to be the mid-blood condensation realm. If he reaches muscle rebirth, nobody would be able to sense anything. Ling Yunzi shook his head. What? You're in existence at the peak of the meridian opening realm. You might break through to the Xiantian realm at any moment and comprehend the heavenly Daos. How would it be possible for you to not be able to see through someone at the muscle rebirth realm? Once you reach my realm, you will understand a couple things. Now that this Long Chen has arrived at our Xiantian monastery, perhaps the Xiantian monastery will never be calm again, sighed Ling Yunzi. Sect leader, this is my fault. Please forgive me, hastily apologized Tu Feng. Ling Yunzi smiled slightly. This doesn't have anything to do with you. It's simply fate. But this youth can perhaps bring a couple changes to our Xiantian monastery. We can only hope those changes are for the good. Is this Long Chen really that hard to deal with? Tu Feng couldn't even believe his ears. But this was the most respected sect leader. I don't know about how hard he is to deal with. But as long as he doesn't die, perhaps the entire world will change because of him. That is because he is one of those legendary existences of heaven and earth, a divergent. Ling Yunzi looked up at the sky, his voice filled with endless respect. Tu Feng was shocked as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 136 Immortal Chrysanthemum. After Ling Yunzi finished speaking, he immediately coughed out a mouthful of blood, giving Tu Feng a great fright. Sect leader. Ling Yunzi waved his hand, indifferently saying, It's nothing, just a mouthful of blood. In order to confirm my guess, it was definitely worth it. Tu Feng already didn't know what to say. That was because what was happening now had already far surpassed his understanding. Having a low cultivation base does have its good points. The backlash wasn't that bad. If I had stepped into the Xiantian realm and said that, perhaps I would have been exterminated under the heavenly Daos, laughed Ling Yunzi. Sect leader, are you okay? Asked Tu Feng. I'm fine. I've just received a backlash from the heavenly Daos. It'll need a couple months to recover, Ling Yunzi said indifferently. A couple months? Tu Feng couldn't believe that. Someone who had reached Ling Yunzi's cultivation base could borrow heaven and earth's power to heal. Even if his limbs broke, he would still be able to quickly recover. But after just coughing up a mouthful of blood, he would need to recover for several months. Tu Feng, you must remember the heavens are difficult to fathom. What I did just now, you absolutely cannot repeat. This injury isn't on my physical body, but on my soul. It's extremely difficult to cure, warned Ling Yunzi. Then do you really think doing so was worth it? Exclaimed Tu Feng. Of course it was worth it. This kind of situation is hard to come by even once in 10,000 years. And once such a person's cultivation base reaches a high level, his body will be masked by the heavenly Daos and no one will be able to see through him. So being able to encounter such a figure is definitely a rare opportunity for us. What I did just now was probably the greatest thing I've ever done, lightly said Ling Yunzi. But his gaze seemed to disdainfully look down on all the heavens. Divergents were exceedingly rare. And divergents amongst the human race were even rarer. And for a divergent to be noticed before the heavenly Daos had masked them was even fewer. Normally, only when divergents were eliminated by the heavenly Daos would people know what they were. It had been countless years since someone had noticed a divergent that had yet to mature. He had risked his own life to prove his conjecture. That was true courage. Or perhaps it was simply that the thinking of experts was not the same as ordinary people. In any case, Ling Yunzi had believed it to be entirely worth it. Then how should we handle Longchen? Asked Tu Feng. Although he had been a bit doubtful of Ling Yunzi's words before, after Ling Yunzi had been punished by the heavenly Daos, he had no choice but to accept them. Such a figure will always grow quickly like a shooting star. His light will dazzle the world and he will step over countless experts' corpses. Ling Yunzi was muttering. It seemed as if he was remembering something as certain scenes flashed through his mind. But unfortunately, such an existence will never be accepted by the heavenly Daos. No matter how strong they are, they'll all die under the power of the heavens, not even leaving a corpse. Ling Yunzi sighed deeply. Divergents were not accepted by the heavenly days. The stronger they were, the more powerfully they would be rejected by the heavenly Daos. Each of them would be a shocking genius that would sweep across the world. Unfortunately, fireworks could not be sustained for more than a moment. Within the long history of the cultivation world, such figures were like the flower known as the Queen of the Night. That flower bloomed for but one night a year, wilting before dawn. When these figures bloomed, although they would shake the entire world, their time would be over in just a moment. It truly is a pity. Tu Feng also sighed. That's why the current world's strongest experts do not possess such existences. Divergents will all be pitilessly exterminated before they can manage to stand at the peak of the cultivation world. However, I really wonder just how long this Longchen will be able to live. Will he be able to blossom with such magnificence, or will he be snuffed out before he can release such radiance? Said Ling Yunzi. So what should we do? Asked Tu Feng. Just let it take its course. Such a figure has his own destiny. His lifespan has already been set by the heavens. If we try to change that course, we'll be affected by karma. That's something we absolutely must avoid. So it'll be best if we just stay bystanders. Sometimes even being a bystander can be fun. Furthermore, I have a premonition that this fellow will completely overturn out Xiantian Monastery. Perhaps I will be the most successful Xiantian Monastery sect leader in all of history. A bright light shined in Ling Yunzi's eyes. Then this time in the monastery grand competition, do you think we can get a good ranking? Tu Feng was also starting to be filled with anticipation. The Xiantian Super Monastery has 108 monasteries. In the grand competitions, we always end with a bottom ranking. Just thinking about it is infuriating. The lower ranking we get, the less resources we get. Our monastery hasn't been able to break out of this vicious cycle for 1,000 years. The difference between us and the other monasteries is only growing greater. Ever since I became the sect leader, I worked incredibly hard to change this. Unfortunately, I was never able to change this cycle. I let down my master, sighed Ling Yunzi. Ling Yunzi's talent was extremely great. He stepped into the bone-forging realm in his 20s. With a single longsword, he swept through those in his generation. He had truly been high-spirited back then. Back then he had paid his respects to the sect leader of that time as his master. When he was 35, that sect leader passed away and he received the position. Recalling his master's benevolence, Ling Yunzi had worked incredibly hard to change the situation of their monastery. He had poured in endless sweat and blood but was still powerless to change their constant defeats. Furthermore, in the past few years, their disciples had become increasingly depressed. There were no standout experts rising out of them. That was even more discouraging. But the year before this, several monster-class sprouts had registered with them. That had caused Ling Yunzi's dust-covered heart to once more pulse with hope. Seeing these geniuses like Tang Wan finally appearing, his ambition once more reignited. He was prepared to once more fight all out and change their constant label of being a bottom patter. Long Chen's appearance boosted his morale even more. In his excitement, he had even been willing to receive the heavenly Daos backlash just to confirm Long Chen's potential. Although he had suffered the backlash, Ling Yunzi was still extremely excited. As long as Long Chen didn't die, he would definitely shine brightly. They had 5 monster-class geniuses plus 1 divergent. It would be difficult for the Xiantian monastery to not rise. Ling Yunzi pondered for a moment and said, "Other than Long Chen, groom the other geniuses as best as you can. They are our hope of rising up this time. Don't worry about the cultivation resources. We must cut off any paths of retreat. This is our only chance. We must take advantage of it." "Yes," hastily said Tu Feng. "I have to go heal my wounds. During this time the monastery will be handed to you. Remember to let everything take its course naturally. You mustn't give Long Chen any special treatment, otherwise our monastery will be implicated." Ling Yunzi gave one last warning before leaving to heal his wounds. After he left, Tu Feng looked into the distance, apprehensiveness pounding within his heart. In the end, he also disappeared. At this time, within a scenic world of thousands of mountains and pools, within a beautiful immortal cave, a long-haired young woman was holding a certain comic, calmly appreciating it. She had a jade-like face, snow-white skin and beautiful, rippling eyes whose gaze cleansed a person's heart and soul. The entire immortal cave became a fairyland due to her presence. Gently touching the pages of the comic, that resolute face which still held a trace of tender youth was smiling. "Long Chen, now you've also stepped onto the path of cultivation. Did you do that because of me?" Meng Qi's cherry lips opened as she faintly sighed. "Hee, sister, you're once more secretly longing for love." Suddenly another maiden silently arrived beside Meng Qi and laughed. "Feng, you, don't be so distasteful." Meng Qi's face reddened. She hastily hid the comic. Our Wind Spirit Pavilion's #1 beauty has finally fallen for someone. I wonder just how many people's hearts will be broken." Lu Fenger had no intention of letting of Meng Qi as she winked at her teasingly. "Feng, if you continue," raged Meng Qi. "I of course had long since known such a day would come. Now that you finally have a boyfriend, do you still need this sister for anything?" A mischievous light shined in Lu Fenger's eyes as she feigned sorrow. "You? I'm just joking, sister. Don't be so petty." Afraid Meng Qi would actually become angry, Lu Fenger gently pulled on her arm and laughed. "This Long Chen really is amazing. In the blood condensation realm, he was able to consecutively kill muscle rebirth experts. Furthermore, it was said that one of them was even a sect disciple. It really is inconceivable." After laughing, Lu Fenger puzzled over this mystery. Through a couple of their methods they had managed to keep track of what was going on with Long Chen. Yesterday, news had come from Phoenix Cry which had completely shocked them. Meng Qi's blush had finally retreated now. A trace of warmth flashed within her beautiful eyes. "Although I haven't been in contact with him much, I can tell he's someone who will never give up." To obtain such a powerful heart, I believe he must have already suffered unimaginable bitterness. In order for a person to distinguish themselves, they must endure and suffer greatly outside other people's eyes as tempering. That is a rule that has never changed. Long Chen might have been able to obtain the Xiantian Monastery's registration card, but the Xiantian Monastery's disciple selection is famously harsh. It isn't sure whether or not Long Chen can pass, sighed Lu Feng'er somewhat worriedly. Meng Qi once more took out that comic. Looking at that figure that was just like a battle god, a warm feeling arose in her heart. Long Chen, I believe in you. I'm looking forward to when I can see you once again. Stop. This path was opened by Mai and these trees were planted by me, so you have to dash. An ear-ringing slap viciously landed on that person's face, interrupting him. Long Chen pointed at that person and cursed. Do you think I'm an idiot? These trees have all lived for thousands of years. At that time your ancestors were still just rolling around in the mud. These trees were planted by you? Long Chen had just been walking, minding his own business, when some fool had jumped out with an axe, actually thinking of robbing Long Chen. That person was slapped dizzy and only came to after a while. When he did, he looked at Long Chen with horror. That person only stuttered for a moment before crawling up frantically and rushing away. As he ran, he repeatedly berated himself. He cursed his own stupidity. He couldn't even see through just who he was trying to rob and ended up trying to rob this demon king. He escaped in an instant. Watching that person miserably flee, Long Chen just shook his head. Even someone with this level of intelligence had come here. It really did cause him to be speechless. For a moment he had thought about taking his jade tile, but he still decided that there was no point. He didn't really have time to waste. Once he ran into someone who had already collected them all, he could just directly snatch them then. Honestly speaking, Long Chen wasn't interested in bullying novices. There were plenty of experts around if he wanted entertainment. Long Chen followed the mountain range as he walked. Suddenly his eyes brightened. Immortal chrysanthemum. Atop a stone cliff was a plant around a foot tall. Its body was actually the shape of a man, and at the spot of the head was a small blossom that looked just like a miniature sunflower. But calling it the Xiantian Branch Monastery had 108 Xiantian outer monasteries was just such a mouthful that I changed it to just Xiantian Super Monastery and Xiantian Monastery. There are more reasons why I decided to translate it like this, but telling you would be a spoiler, wink with tongue sticking out. Chapter 137 Wonder Carp. Long Chen almost shouted when he saw that marvelous blossom. That was one of the main medicinal ingredients required to condense the second star of the 9-star Hegemon body art, the Alioth star. Before leaving Phoenix Cry, Long Chen had already asked the Alchemist Guild and auction houses about the medicinal ingredients. Other than some subsidiary medicinal ingredients, he hadn't found any main ingredients. To refine the Alioth star only required second-tier medicinal ingredients, but those main ingredients were all extremely rare. Even the Alchemist Guild's senior alchemists had never heard of many of them. Long Chen had been extremely worried then. Now that he saw this immortal chrysanthemum, he required all his willpower not to shout out in shock. 9 leaves pointing to the sky like an immortal pointing the way. Yes, this is definitely an immortal chrysanthemum. Long Chen once more confirmed that he hadn't been wrong. Long Chen jumped up the cliff in just a couple steps, reaching the immortal chrysanthemum. But suddenly he felt a grave threat and dodged to the side. A huge python shot just past Long Chen. If it weren't for his quick reactions, he would have been bit by it. There's a magical beast guarding it? Long Chen was surprised. Some rarer medicinal ingredients would always have magical beasts guarding them. He hadn't expected such a situation to occur within the Xiantian Monastery. Carefully examining this huge python, he saw that it was a foot thick and its entire body was gold yellow. In fact, its scales even looked as if they had been forged out of gold. Having missed, it now turned to face Long Chen, menacingly sticking out its tongue. Behind it was a cave that was hidden behind a couple short shrubs. When he had been climbing, Long Chen hadn't been at the correct angle to see that. Gold scale python, an overlord amongst second-tier magical beasts. It's also extremely rare. I wouldn't have expected to encounter one here. Long Chen's heart shook slightly. During their trial, there were actually magical beasts present. That meant this was no ordinary trial. If you were defeated, wasn't it entirely possible you could die? Although everyone here were geniuses, their cultivation bases were only within the blood condensation realm. As for this gold-scale python, it was extremely powerful. The weaker participants could very easily lose their lives to it if they ended up encountering one. As Long Chen was thinking, that gold-scale python once more shot over like lightning, trying to bite Long Chen. Its mouth opened to almost the same height as Long Chen, for long fangs protruding out with a translucent liquid dripping off them. Pill blaze! Long Chen coldly shouted. Extending his hand, a ball of flame formed in his hand. When that gold-scale python was about to bite him, he directly threw that ball of flame into its mouth, retreating at the same time. Boom! That ball of flame exploded within the gold-scale python's mouth. Flesh and blood shot everywhere as its entire head disappeared. The remaining half of its body began to wildly spasm. Long Chen's expression suddenly changed and he kicked away that corpse. Seeing that the immortal chrysanthemum was completely undamaged, he sighed in relief. It had almost been crushed by the gold-scale python's body. The immortal chrysanthemum had to be kept entirely intact. If part of it was damaged, the entire plant's medicinal effect would sharply decline. In reality, that gold-scale python was extremely strong. Its scales possessed an incredibly powerful defensive strength such that even blades were unable to harm it. Even an ordinary muscle rebirth expert would find it difficult to break through its defense. Furthermore, it could even spit out poisonous gas, and once you were enveloped by that poison gas, even if you did stop breathing, you would still be poisoned. That poison was extremely difficult to treat. But Long Chen had been lucky this time. Most of its powerful defense was focused on protecting its outer body, while Long Chen's flames had been tossed into its mouth. Even if it had 10 lives, it shouldn't have been messing around like that. Carefully digging away the mud, he extracted the immortal chrysanthemum, leaving behind some mud on its roots. Carefully placing it into a jade bottle, he put it into his spatial ring. Glancing at the gold-scale python's corpse, he decided not to bring it. The gold-scale python's power was mostly focused on defense, not its poison. So its poison was not as powerful as that of the huge desert scorpion. And snakes without powerful poisons didn't fetch much of a price on the market, not even their gallbladder. So Long Chen still decided to just leave the corpse there. Looking around, he saw a piece of flesh had landed in an underbrush. From that piece of flesh he extracted a palm-sized crystal core. The crystal core contained the full essence of the gold-scale python and was extremely precious. Whether it was as medicine, to be refined into medicine, or to be used as a weapon, anything was possible. That was especially true for using it for weapons. By embedding the crystal core into a weapon, it was possible for that weapon become much stronger. Those kinds of weapons were called spirit weapons. Spirit weapons could only be made with a powerful forging master. With the power of glyphs, they were capable of activating the magical beast's crystal core to increase the power of the weapon. But such weapons were extremely rare. Even up till now, Long Chen had never seen one in person. This level of crystal core was still too low to be forged into a weapon. But it should still be worth some money. Putting the core away, Long Chen continued forward, following a small brook between two mountains. Long Chen knew that it was this kind of place that was close to water that was most likely to contain precious, natural treasures. Having found the immortal chrysanthemum, Long Chen became much more lively. As he followed the water, the small brook gradually widened, the water gradually growing calmer as it eventually formed a small river. After walking another 2 hours, loud crashing sounds came from the front. Walking closer, he saw a waterfall flowing down like a white ribbon. Millions upon millions of water droplets splashed out as the water cascaded into the rocks below. Under the dazzling sunlight, those water droplets practically looked like pearls, incomparably beautiful. At the bottom of the waterfall was a natural pool around 5 miles wide. The water was extremely clear. He could easily see dozens of meters into the water. The waterfall was like a ribbon while the pool was like a mirror reflecting the picturesque mountains, an absolutely enchanting sight. Long Chen was stunned by the beauty of it all. "Oh, there's fish in this water." Long Chen suddenly noticed that there were figures moving in the water. They were probably fish, but he couldn't tell what fish yet. The water rippled as one fish stealthily swam to the surface to swallow a floating fruit. Wonder carp. Now Long Chen had managed to recognize it. That fish was around the size of a palm, its body covered by 4-colored scales. After swallowing that small fruit, it quickly swam back down. The wonder carp wasn't a magical beast, but a kind of delicacy. Its taste was divine, and it was said that after eating it, you had to be careful not to swallow your own tongue down with it. Although that was a kind of exaggerated jest, the wonder carp's taste had already become a thing of legends, praised as a delicacy for divine immortals. But the reason Long Chen wanted it wasn't for its taste, but for its value. Below the wonder carp's cheek was a lump of flesh. Hidden within that lump was a small pebble-like ball. Almost everyone thought that ball was just some kind of stony bone and would throw it away, thinking it was trash. But Long Chen's pill god memories told him that that was the wonder carp's essence. It was a treasure that could nourish the soul. The strength of one's soul was essentially set with one's birth. Things that could nourish the soul later were extremely rare. Furthermore, the majority of people weren't even aware of most of those treasures. It was just like the Night Devil Skull Long Chen had obtained from the Huayan Pavilion. Within the Night Devil Skull was not just its crystal core, but also its essence. Long Chen had used the Night Devil's essence to refine a soul-nourishing pill. Later he had given that soul-nourishing pill to Lu Feng'er to give to Meng Qi. He was unaware that after Meng Qi had consumed that soul-nourishing pill, her spiritual strength had grown tremendously. That kind of change was enough to shake the world. Meng Qi's spiritual strength was already special before. Now with Long Chen's soul-nourishing pill, her potential soul strength explosively grew, shocking the entire Wind Spirit Pavilion. Both Meng Qi and Lu Feng'er had refused to tell anyone about his soul-nourishing pill. Even they themselves didn't know what exactly that pill had been, and they were afraid to implicate Long Chen. That was something Long Chen had no idea about. Looking at the fish in the water, his heart pounded joyfully. The wonder carp was not the same as the Night Devil. The Night Devil was a demonic creature whose innate nature was violent and tyrannical. In order to refine its essence into the soul-nourishing pill, the majority of its energy had to be discarded, leaving behind only a small portion of purer essence. It was extremely wasteful. But the wonder carp lived in pure waters, naturally absorbing spiritual qi from heaven and earth. There were no impurities, and so the wonder carp's essence could be directly absorbed. Furthermore, there were no negative side effects. Rich, I'm rich. Long Chen was overjoyed. This Xiantian monastery was truly a good place. Everywhere were treasures. It had definitely been worth it to come. He examined the large pool and began to ponder. First he needed to test the water depth and then think of a way to catch the fish. Taking out a strand of black silk, he tied a stone on top of it and threw it into the water. The stone slowly descended. What? It's this deep. The 300-meter silk he held in his hand had reached its end, but he still hadn't reached the bottom. With such a deep pool, even if I make fishing nets, it would be extremely difficult to catch anything. Furthermore, the wonder carp's swimming speed is famously fast. It's just impossible. A fishing rod isn't a bad idea, but the efficiency of hooking a fish is too low. I can't just stay here the whole time. Making some fishing traps is a better idea. Long Chen finally decided to make some fishing cages. The fishing cages were simple to make. Everything was already ready except for some ropes he had to tie. When he was young he had manufactured such things before, so he was very familiar with the process. He tied a bunch of sticks into a bucket shape, the two ends taking the shape of inverted horns. This way the ends were large on the outside but small on the inside. When a fish swam in, it would be extremely difficult for it to find the exit again. Then they would be trapped in the cage. In less than an hour, Long Chen made 2 fish cages. Thinking about it for a moment, he took out his pill furnace from his spatial ring and began to refine medicinal pills. 15 minutes later, he easily finished his refinement. Those weren't true medicinal pills. There was no pill formula either. Long Chen had just refined a couple medicinal fruits and blossoms that smelled good together to form a kind of good-smelling pill. It didn't have any effect other than being fish bait. Taking out 2 long ropes, he cut off sections around 100 meters long. Tying one end to the cages and placing the fish bait inside, he selected 2 spots and threw the cages into the water, the other end of the ropes tied to a tree. After setting up those traps, Long Chen found a nice rock to rest on. Now he just need to wait. Would his bait be appealing to those wonder carps? An hour later, Long Chen gently pulled up one of his traps. Slowly raising the cage out of the water, he saw movement from within. Taking the cage out of the water, he saw there were surprisingly 3 palm-sized colorful wonder carps. "Hand over the wonder carps." A pleased voice rang out. Chapter 138 Take the Place of the Heavens. Long Chen raised his head and saw 3 people standing not far behind him. Their eyes were bright as they looked at Long Chen. No, more accurately, they were looking at his fish cage. "Kid, what are you still waiting here for? Hand over the wonder carps." Long Chen nodded and placed the fish cage on the ground. Those 3 immediately rushed over and took out the wonder carps excitedly. "They really are the legendary wonder carps. I heard this thing tastes so good that no one can resist it. I can't believe we've managed to catch them here," laughed one of them. Long Chen icily watched these 3 excited fools. He didn't say anything. He was interested whether they had any brains at all. Too bad we don't have anywhere to put them. Spatial rings can't store living creatures. Otherwise we could just capture a few and breed them. If we could end up with a farm of endless wonder carps, we'd be able to eat a feast every meal, lamented one of them. Hee, my Southern Mountain Zhao family had a forging master ancestor. Do you recognize this? One of the men who was a bit cross-eyed took out a ring proudly. What's this? It looks like a spatial ring. The other 2 were puzzled. Hee, do you not understand? This is called a life ring. You can put living creatures inside it. It was made by one of Zhao family's ancestors. The cross-eyed man was extremely pleased with himself. You can put living things inside it? Excellent. Then can Brother Zhao also put his house pets within this life ring? Those 2 looked at him enviously. Cough, it should be possible. But this is a relic of a dead ancestor, and due to his memory, I refuse to place magical beasts within. That would be a kind of blasphemy to my ancestor. The cross-eyed man coughed and covered up his embarrassment. In reality, life rings were more than capable of storing magical beasts within. However, his ancestor had only been half a forging master. To be more accurate, he had really just been an apprentice. So this life ring was really a defective product when compared to true life rings. Only a couple creatures with weaker life forces could be placed within. It couldn't even store some of the more powerful wild beasts, let alone magical beasts. But he refused to tell them this. Then does Brother Zhao want to place these wonder carps inside this life ring? Asked one of them. Of course. Aren't you afraid of blaspheming against your ancestor? Ah, that's not the same. If I placed a magical beast within, it would mess around, probably peeing everywhere. That's a blasphemy. But a wonder carp is an absolute delicacy. My ancestor would definitely be happy for such a thing, so it's not a blasphemy, said the cross-eyed man without blushing at all. The other 2 hesitated slightly. Now they had 3 wonder carps, so each of them could have one. They were somewhat apprehensive to place them all with the cross-eyed man. What, do you 2 not trust your brother? All of us are followers of Boss Lei. Do you guys not even have that little bit of trust? The other 2 hastily said, How could we not trust you? We're just curious whether the life ring really could raise fish, that's all. How could the cross-eyed man not see through that lie? But he only lightly said, We're all chasing after Boss Lei. Our families sent over many benefits to him, so Boss Lei still decided to accept us. But after arriving here, you guys have also seen how intense the competition is here. Even though we're definitely top-ranking in terms of power, Bastard, what are you laughing about? The cross-eyed man saw that Long Chen was laughing and angrily pointed at him. Oh, nothing, you guys continue. Long Chen did his best to keep his laughter inside. But these clowns made that extremely difficult. From what the cross-eyed man was saying, Long Chen could guess that their families had sent over many gifts to the Lei family already, and that was the only reason Lei Qianshang had agreed to let them join his faction. These three fools possessed faces that were just asking for a beating. It was almost as if he would be letting down their parents if he didn't give them a beating. Lei Qianshang definitely wouldn't care about such people. It was only because he had received orders from his family that he had accepted them. Seeing Long Chen's twisted face, they assumed he was afraid of them and couldn't help snorting. Although our power is top-ranking, there are too many others who also have top-ranking strength. There are even a few who are even more outstanding than us. We have to be ready for anything. The other two nodded to the cross-eyed man's words. Although both of them knew he was self-boasting to call their power top-ranking, they themselves were already clear just what kind of level they themselves had reached. Thus we have to display proper loyalty and devotion to Boss Lei. Only then can we improve our relationship even more. Right? Brother Zhao's words are completely correct, the other two admiringly said. And so don't be suspicious. We'll hand over all these things to Boss Lei. What do you two think? Yes, Brother Zhao is right. If Brother Zhao hadn't given us this reminder, we really would have made a mistake. Brother Zhao's eyes truly are discerning, penetrating through everything. The cross-eyed man's became even more pleased as he heard their praises. Hee, you flatter me. Many fools mock me for my cross eyes. But they just don't know that that's because I examine things extremely carefully, and it's because of that that I can see more and further than other people. Long Chen almost lost control of his laughter this time. This cross-eyed man really knew how to cover up his own embarrassments. After he modestly said that, the cross-eyed man brought the life ring over to the pool. He absorbed a great deal of water into the life ring from a bucket. My life ring has an area of 30 meters. First I have to add a small pond to it so I can add the wonder carps, he explained to the other two. Absorbing several more buckets of water, he finally had added enough water, and he absorbed his wonder carp into his life ring as well. Okay, everything is set now. Give me your wonder carps as well. After finally absorbing all 3 wonder carps, the 3 of them turned to look at Long Chen. Seeing that Long Chen was staring at his life ring, the cross-eyed man sneered, "Kid, I bet you've never seen such a mysterious treasure before, right? Look on and envy all you want. You're just a weakling. Did you think you could be arrogant just because you have a 3rd-rank magical beasts? Which family doesn't have 3rd-rank magical beasts? We just didn't feel like bringing one out here. Back then you used your 3rd-rank magical beast to ride off against Qi Xin so mightily. Now you regret it, right? Without a 3rd-rank magical beast by your side, you're just a useless snail. Now tell me, just how did you attract these wonder carps? Don't be stupid or we'll beat you." The cross-eyed man viciously glared at Long Chen. The 3 of them had noticed the wonder carps long before he had arrived. But no matter what method they used, they were unable to catch one. They had even set up traps without capturing even a single one. They had been walking along the water in hopes of finding a better spot to fish when they had encountered Long Chen. And so now they urgently wished to know just how Long Chen had managed to catch the fish. They even directly threatened him to force him into handing over his secret technique. He indifferently looked at the 3 of them and sincerely smiled. "I really am thankful the 3 of you came really." "Less crap. Quickly tell us the method," advised one of them. "I actually had something I wanted to discuss with you 3. But now I find that your manners really are lacking, so I'll switch to a different method of conversation." Suddenly his hand shot out without any warning, slapping across the cross-eyed man. The cross-eyed man had never expected that someone he considered an ant to dare slap him. An extremely resounding sound rang out. Without any defenses, he was sent flying dozens of meters, miserably landing in a pile of thistles. How refreshing! Long Chun couldn't help praising himself inside. That cross-eyed man really had been acting far too obnoxiously. Giving him a slap gave him a great delight. It was incredibly refreshing to take the place of the heavens to give him a lesson. "You asked for it." The other two furiously shouted and charged at him. Those two were both late-stage blood condensation experts with steady auras. But unfortunately, their attacks had far too many openings. They were using a pattern attack that was incredibly inflexible. But he had to admit that they really were acting like experts very well, especially their appearance when they shouted. A large hand slapped across their two faces, and the two of them were immediately sent flying, landing on the cross-eyed man. Whether it was the angle, posture, or distance, everything had been perfect. That cross-eyed man had just only dizzily gotten back up when those two crashed into him, knocking him back again. "Bastard!" The three of roared, their auras exploding. Blood chi surged as they charged at Long Chen. More slaps rang out mixed with miserable cries. The birds that had been at the pool were all frightened into flight. Slapping and banging noises continued to ring out. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, those screams and bangs finally stopped. The three of their faces were now covered in large bumps and bruises, making their heads look like pig heads. The intense pain coming from their face made it so even they themselves felt they were probably no better than pigs either. Originally they had thought Long Chen was just some spoiled disciple, more spoiled than even them. After all, he had just been relying on his mount, which didn't represent he had any real power. They had assumed that because no matter how they looked at Long Chen, he didn't look like an expert. He didn't have Lei Qianshang's overbearing aggressiveness and arrogance. That caused them to think he was a cocky hoodlum. So the three of them had considered Long Chen an easy target. But after a fierce fight, they had been completely ruthlessly oppressed. As for Long Chen, he was relaxed and pleased. He amicably told the three of them, "Now we can have a proper conversation, right?" Chapter 139 Plentiful Harvest. Long Chen's voice was very gentle as if he were just greeting an old friend. His bright smile was extremely sincere. But in their eyes, that smile was even more terrifying than a vicious magical beast. Who could possibly ruthlessly beat people like this and then still speak so gently to them immediately after? "Long Chen, don't go overboard," fearfully cried out the cross-eyed man. "I never go overboard. I just want to have a conversation. I have my own secret problems. You can only blame yourselves for growing faces that were just asking for a beating. If I hadn't beat you, I would have been afraid the heavens would strike me with lightning," helplessly sighed Long Chen. "Phew. Well, let's get to business. Continuing on from where I left off, I'm very happy you guys are here. On my own behalf, I warmly welcome you three with my heartfelt congratulations." Long Chen even clapped a couple times for them before continuing. "I was lacking manpower, but your arrival totally fixes that problem. I just happen to need some people to help me make some fish cages. And to Mr. Crossed, I really must thank you for bringing me such a gift. I really must apologize for my previous crudeness. So I hope you won't make me feel any more guilty about that beating. You understand, right?" Long Chen extended his hand, his meaning obvious. If he didn't hand over his life ring, Long Chen would have to make himself feel even more guilty. "Please, that's my ancestors. 'Kay, I'll give it to you." The cross-eyed man had just been about to refuse when Long Chen began to shrug his shoulders and legs as a warm-up. He immediately threw over his life ring. Hee, Brother Zhao's sincerity is really too much. I really can't accept." Well, I guess I'm just becoming soft-hearted. "No need to thank me," Long Chen sighed as he took the life ring. The cross-eyed man's vision darkened as he became so dizzy with anger that he almost fainted. This person really was too shameless. Who would thank someone for robbing them? "Long Chen, you're also from a powerful family. How can you be such a scoundrel? This is the conduct of a small person. indignantly said one of them. No, I'm not from a powerful family. So being a small person is just in my nature. Being a scoundrel is my virtue, robbing is my profession, and beating up others would have to be my greatest hobby. Long Chun tried using his divine sense to enter the life ring. The three of them turned green from rage at this shameless display. This completely toppled their understanding as noble disciples. Long Chun didn't care the slightest bit of his status. That both infuriated and terrified them. In just a couple breaths' time, Long Chun broke through the life ring's original spiritual imprint and managed to see what was inside. What surprised Long Chun was that a life ring really wasn't the same as a spatial ring. Instead of being a neat and square area, it was the shape of a sphere. It had an area of around 30 meters. Inside were some small gardens. In the middle was also a small pond. Around it were a couple small shrubs and plants. Interesting. Long Chun took out his immortal chrysanthemum and placed it into the life ring. Using his spiritual strength, he dug out a small hole and planted it within. Originally, the immortal chrysanthemum, despite him leaving some of its original soil around its roots, would have died within 3 days in his spatial ring. That was because living things couldn't be stored within a spatial ring. Even living plants could not be stored without them dying. But at this time the immortal chrysanthemum had yet to die. Although planting it here wouldn't allow it to continue growing, at least it wouldn't die. A living immortal chrysanthemum was much more useful than a dead one. That was because once a precious natural treasure died, a part of its essence would be lost just like that. That was something that could not be avoided. But now with the life ring, this immortal chrysanthemum could live for longer. It was just unfortunate that this life ring's quality was too inferior. Otherwise, the immortal chrysanthemum could have continued to grow within the life ring. Due to this ring, I won't steal your tiles. Long Chun nodded his head contentedly. They relaxed when they heard that. But only the cross-eyed man was filled with pain. Although he had no major use for that life ring, he had always acted as if it was some divine item. That was because such things were incredibly few in number and few people had ever possessed or even seen one. No matter who he was with, as long as he showed off his life ring, he would immediately become the center of attention. With his bragging skills, he would speak of his ancestors' glory. Furthermore, because the life ring wasn't that practical, it wouldn't cause others to go rob him. And so it had never been snatched away. But now he had run into Long Chun. And it had just happened that Long Chun was in need of such a thing. That caused the cross-eyed man's heart to bleed blood. Mr. Cross-eyed Dash. My surname is Zhao, retorted the cross-eyed man. Brother Zhao Cross-eyed Dash. My name is Zhao Tianhao. Slap. A ear-ringing slap landed on his face as Long Chun raged. Now your name is Cross-Eyes. If you dare interrupt again, I'll throw you into the water to feed the fishes. The cross-eyed man glared at Long Chun, but he didn't dare open his mouth again. By now he was completely terrified of this shameless scoundrel. With a wave of his hand, Long Chun suddenly covered the three of them with a white powder. The three of them were taken by surprise, but they didn't sense anything immediately odd from the powder. But after a while, they sensed something was wrong. Their bodies were becomingly unbearably itchy, especially around their wounds. They weren't able to bear it and began to scratch. As soon as they scratched, even their insides became itchy and they couldn't help crying out. Hee hee, I saw that you guys don't like to be cooperative, so I gave you guys some itching powder. Now we can discuss business. Long Chun extended his hand, giving them 3 medicinal pills. This is a temporary cure. It can stop the itching for 2 hours. As long as you all work properly, 2 hours later, I will give you the full cure. But if you are stubborn, you can choose not to eat it. But I'll tell you right now that my itching powder is not ordinary. Without scratching off your own skin, there's no way you'll stop it. The 3 of them angrily decided to obediently eat his cure. Immediately after consuming it, the itching completely disappeared. It was as if that itching before had just been a dream. Okay, now I'll give you your jobs. Go cut down some branches to weave into cages for me. Make them according to the standards of the cage I have here. If you can't each make one in 2 hours, no antidote. After he finished saying that, the three of them continued to just foolishly look at him. He sinisterly laughed. You can continue just standing there, but I guarantee that 2 hours later, you'll be in so much pain you won't want to live. The three of them blanched and immediately flew into action. They began chopping down branches and weaving them according to Long Chen's cage. But Long Chen had really overestimated these spoiled disciples. The things they weaved caused Long Chen to curse. There were so many huge gaps between their branches that even a tortoise would be able to swim through. How could it possibly be used for catching fish? Hey, work properly. You, Cross Eyes, didn't you say you can see through things accurately? Are you making cages or a boat? Does that look like the right shape? Long Chen finally had no choice but to teach them how to work one step at a time. Only at this time did Long Chen have a chance to check his second fish cage. Pulling it out, splashing came from within. There's actually 7 in this one. After all, Long Chen had left this cage in the water for about twice as long. That was why there were so many more fish in. He checked the medicinal pill he had wrapped in grass and placed within the cage. Despite having soaked in water for so long, it hadn't dissolved much at all. Long Chen thought about and decided to take a dagger and cut the medicinal pill into smaller pieces. That way the flavor released would be even denser. He then threw it back into the water. Returning to his original location, he saw the three of them had finished weaving. Although there were still many small gaps, they had used some more thinner branches to cover up those spots. Although it was ugly, it could at least be used to catch more fish. Once they swam into it, they wouldn't be able to escape. At this time, the three of their expressions were somewhat ugly. Their bodies were incessantly trembling. Obviously, the itching powder had already begun to affect them again. But with their experience from last time, they didn't dare go itch again and could only bitterly endure it. Seeing Long Chen arrive, the three of them looked at him expectantly. By now they had already realized how terrifying Long Chen was and didn't dare do anything to provoke him. Long Chen handed them new medicinal pills that could let them stop the itching for 6 hours. He knew with their previous experience, they wouldn't dare run. The three of them stayed by the waterside, weaving fish cages for him. It went without saying that under this pressure, their weaving skill quickly skyrocketed. If there came a day they were no longer able to cultivate, they could still rely on their weaving to survive. After a whole day, they had weaved over 30 fish cages. Long Chen threw them into the water, placing them at least several hundred meters apart to attract more fish. Each loop around the pool would take him close to 4 hours. He could continuously circle around, raising the cages and collecting the fish inside. Because the medicinal pill had its own limits, Long Chen didn't require any more cages. He set the three of them to bringing up the cages for him as he just sat there, waiting for them to bring him buckets of wonder carps. 2 days later, Long Chen's life ring contained hundreds of wonder carps. Long Chen finally decided to stop fishing. One reason was that the medicinal pill had finally dissolved away, and the other reason was that he temporarily had enough fish for his uses. In any case, he would be staying within the Xiantian monastery in the future. There would still be chances for him to get more, so there was no need for him to take all the fish away. A small fire was burning away next to the pool. Dozens of wonder carps were being cooked, the smell causing people to drool with desire. Even Long Chen had to constantly swallow his saliva. Okay, you've all worked hard. These fish can be your reward. After eating you can head off. Long Chen took the lead to take a fish and began eating it. As soon as he bit into, the flavor immediately exploded throughout his mouth, making him want to eat even more. After eating just that one, he handed over the antidote to the itching powder to them and walked off alone. The three of them watched him leave and then looked at each other. They began to wildly devour the food. In just a short moment, they completely finished over all of them. This Long Chen isn't that bad, sighed one of them, licking his lips. You absolutely can't let Boss Lei hear that. Remember which faction we're on, said the cross-eyed man. The three of their hearts shook and they hastily nodded. Okay, just let this matter pass like this. No one say anything. Otherwise, if Boss Lei hears about it, he might feel we're too useless and kick us out, he solemnly continued. After that, the three of them also walked away from this place. Of course, Long Chen didn't care what those three thought of him. In any case, he had already obtained something good. After treating them to such a feast, they were even. Walking over a small mountain, a voice suddenly attracted his attention. Chapter 149 Leaf Orchid. Long Chen. Long Chen turned back in surprise to see a maiden looking at him. You are? He didn't recognize her, but she had called out his name. I'm Qingyu. We're both part of Sister Wanner's faction, she hastily explained. Oh, do you need something? Asked Long Chen. I heard that Sister Wanner is fighting against Lei Qianshang. Apparently it's not that far from here, she worriedly said. Then I wish them a good fight. Anyways, I'll going now. Shaking his head, Long Chen prepared to leave. He definitely didn't have interest in just watching that. He still needed to spend his time searching for some better treasures. He had no time for that nonsense. Seeing Long Chen didn't care about Tang Wang, Qingyu grabbed him and angrily said, What are you saying? You're part of Sister Wanner's faction, so you have to be loyal and never betray her. By not caring about her safety, that is precisely betraying her. Do you still have the any face? How would you ever face the heroes of the world if dash? Okay, you've given me a dose of you. If you keep talking, then I really will be painted into becoming a completely wicked sinner. Fine, I'll go with you. Long Chen hastily surrendered. This girl's mouth really was too vicious. How can you put it that way? What do you mean, you've gotten a dose of me? You just hadn't clearly seen your own mistake. Since Sister Wanner personally invited you, you dash. Qingyu solemnly, unceasingly scolded him. Okay, if you keep talking, then the fight will be over by the time we get there. You know what, that'll be good. Let's not go. Long Chen impatiently interrupted her. This girl's mouth really had no end. Oh, that's right. Then let's go see how Sister Wanner is. Once this matter is over, then I'll finish telling you about your problems. As a person, you must be upright and proper. Your cultivation goals must be clear. Qingyu nodded. Sister Qingyu, can I ask you a question? Asked Long Chen. Ask away. Do you have any men chasing after you? He curiously asked. She was startled, then shook her head. No, why? Oh, I get it. Long Chen nodded. What? Nothing. It just makes sense, right? What's your relationship to Tang Wanner? Suddenly asked Long Chen. My grandpa arranged for Sister Wanner to have a close, personal maid. I've already followed along the young lady for 10 years. I'm in charge of her safety and the various work she needs, said Qingyu. So she was a busybody housemaid. No wonder was always scolding and prattling away. You said Tang Wanner was fighting Lei Qianshang? Doesn't that Lei gorilla like Sister Wanner? Why would they be fighting? Giving people nicknames like that is a big no dash. Then I'll withdraw that nickname. But Sister Qingyu, please answer my other question. Long Chen hastily interrupted her scolding again. You're right that Lei Qianshang likes Sister Wanner. But when a man finds himself attracted to a woman, they really try to woo and chase after her. Instead, they like using martial force to impress and subdue them, making her unwaveringly follow him. That's the normal way you men like to handle things, said Qingyu. Long Chen rolled his eyes. Did she need to insult his entire gender? He had wanted to refute her including him in her description, but then wouldn't that be saying he wasn't a man? He decided to just stay silent. But her words did cause him to gain a new understanding of the cultivation world. A man's attractiveness was directly related to his martial strength. It was just like in the animal kingdom. Only the strong gorillas had the qualification to have more mates. Although he scoffed at such a system, having entered the cultivation world, he had seen that everything was useless. Martial strength was the only thing anyone could trust in. Furthermore, the cultivation world's standards were completely opposite to the secular world's. They were incredibly barbaric. There were practically no morals or ethics. Strength was everything. Long Chen sighed sorrowfully. By living in this world, Would he also change to become like that? Why are they fighting? He followed up. It seems to be that they noticed a treasure at the same time. No one wants to let the other, so they could only use martial strength to resolve this, explained Qingyu. A treasure? Long Chen's eyes brightened. Something that could cause Tang Wan'er and Lei Qianshang to fight without hesitation definitely had to be something good. Cough, now that Sister Wan'er had fallen into danger as her subordinate, I must save her even if I must walk through fire and water, sacrificing my life. In order to return Sister's kindness and patronage, I definitely must help Sister seize this treasure, loyally said Long Chen. At the same time, his speed shot up as he rushed even faster. Qingyu was startled, but she then gratefully smiled, thinking Long Chen had finally gotten things straight and become a good person. How could she know that Long Chen's words about helping her hadn't been entirely sincere? Seeing Long Chen rushing forward, she also sped up. But what surprised her was that now that he had sped up, her speed was incomparable to his. Furthermore, she could also clearly see that despite his speed, he wasn't using any battle skills. Qingyu tried to keep up as fast as she could, but she could only just barely follow behind him. Passing past a mountain, they arrived at a valley. Within the valley, dozens of people were currently fighting exceptionally intensely. Outside that crowd of fighting were two others in front of a cliff. One of them was exceptionally large while the other was exceptionally lithe and graceful. They were naturally Lei Qianshang and Tang Wan'er. Thin lines of light covered Lei Qianshang's entire body. They were constantly flickering. They were actually countless flowing strands of lightning. With thunderbolts around his body, even his gaze was like lightning. A single punch of his caused space to boom as if it was exploding. As for the one facing him, Tang Wan'er, wind was blowing across her body. With each turn of her hand, wind blades would shoot out. Her wind blades surrounded her. Her imposingness did not lose out to Lei Qianshang in the slightest. Wind blades and lightning continuously collided. Thunder continuously rang out. The ground beneath them was crushed piece by piece. It really is a rare show. The two of them possessed incredibly great power. It was a rare occasion to be able to see such a fight. What are you just watching for? Quickly go help. Qingyu also arrived. Cough, I'm not just watching. I'm examining the situation and coming up with a battle plan. Only then can I really help Sister Wan'er, craftily explained Long Chen. In reality, Long Chen didn't want to take action. It would be better for him to conserve his true power. Furthermore, he had only been pulled into Tang Wan'er's faction because she had tricked him. Who knew just what plans she had for in the future? The fact she hadn't already tossed him under the bus was already quite lucky. That's reasonable. Then quickly finish observing. I'll go help first. Qingyu actually believed him and jumped down into the valley, rushing into the crowd. Only then told Long Chen noticed that the huge mess of a fight was split between two sides. After a careful look, he realized that huge mass of fighting was split between Lei Qianshang and Tang Wan'er's factions. He only figured it out because he saw a couple familiar faces. They should have been people who had their families set up their positions and not those that Lei Qianshang or Tang Wan'er personally knew. It was no wonder they would come at this opportunity. This was the best time for them to show off their power to their factions. But it appeared Tang Wan'er's side was quite a bit weaker. Who knew whether it was because her faction was simply weaker or whether the stronger members had yet to arrive, but under their opponent's pressure, they were forced back step by step. Even the addition of Qingyu's peak blood condensation power didn't change that. They were stuck in an inferior position. After only briefly examining the battlefield, Long Chen began to search around, finally finding what he was looking for. Wow, so it was the nine-leaf orchid. No wonder they would fight. The nine-leaf orchid was an extremely rare medicinal plant. It had many uses, but its main use was to nourish the body. Its power medicinal energy could increase the physical body's strength. Even directly eating it was no problem. But if it was refined into a medicinal pill, its effect would multiply. Other than greatly increasing the strength of the physical body, it also had the effect smoothing the skin, reducing wrinkles, letting a person's skin be even more lustrous. It was obvious that Lei Qianshang was after the nine-leaf orchid to increase his own physical strength. As for Tang Wanna, it seemed more likely she was after this divine treasure which could immediately make her even more attractive. The more beautiful the woman, the more she would desire more beauty. And so neither party would let the other party obtain it, causing them to fight. And once news that they had started to fight transmitted out, their faction's experts all gathered to help. Even Long Chen was somewhat attracted to the nine-leaf orchid. Its nourishment of the physical body was definitely miraculous. And for blood condensation cultivators, it could not only nourish the body, but also expand the meridians. However, Long Chen's body had already been improved by the spirit world expert. Long Chen estimated that even if he obtained the nine-leaf orchid, it wouldn't have much of an effect on him. But if he refined it into a medicinal pill, it would definitely be somewhat effective. The nine-leaf orchid was located on a cliff. In order to arrive there, he would have to wade through the battle. That would be too obvious and his chances of obtaining it would be far too low. Furthermore, if he did try passing through that crowd, he would definitely be recognized. Then there was no way he wouldn't be involved in the fighting. He wouldn't be able to go directly to the nine-leaf orchid. After observing for a while, he noticed that both parties were currently completely focused on the other. They weren't paying much attention to the nine-leaf orchid. Furthermore, although they were fighting, it wasn't a life-and-death battle. Both sides were holding back. There shouldn't be much a change for a while, let alone any deaths. Since it was such a protracted battle, perhaps it might be possible for him to slip through without anyone noticing. He'd let them beat each other up. He would stealthily go snatch that medicinal plant. Long Chen smiled and began to stealthily withdraw when a shout rang over. "Damn, Long Chen, hurry up and come help." Chapter 141 Another Beast Transformation. Long Chen had just been sneaking away when that voice made him pause stiffly. That voice was very clear and melodious. Slowly turning back, he saw that Tang Wanner had noticed him at some point. While fighting, she had shouted out his name. "Damn, Long Chen, are you trying to run right before battle?" Tang Wanner's voice was full of anger. Obviously, she despised the way Long Chen was acting. Her shout wasn't anything. More importantly, now everyone's focus had landed on him. "Hey, what kind of joke is that? Am I, Long Chen, a person who would do such a thing? I was just thinking of finding a good place to warm up before joining the battle in my peak condition," argued Long Chen. That sophistry was met with complete disdain in everyone's ears. His furtive figure had clearly been about to flee. Even a blind person could probably have seen that. "Zhao Wu, go capture that brat. I've long since found him to be displeasing. Give him a thorough beating." Lei Qianshang ordered one of his subordinates. "Yes, boss." That Zhao Wu nodded. With a smile delighting in Long Chen's misfortunate, he charged over at him. Zhao Wu was at the peak of blood condensation with powerful combat abilities. He was one of Lei Qianshang's capable subordinates. The entire power level of his faction sharply dropped because he left the battle, alleviating much of the pressure on Tang Wanner's side. A crafty light shined within Tang Wanner's eyes when she saw Zhao Wu go after Long Chen. "You might want to warm up, but sister won't let you do as you please." With a light shout, Tang Wanner waved her hands, summoning two clear wind blades. They were like two long swords in her hands as she attacked Lei Qianshang. She possessed an extremely rare wind soul and had a great, innate affinity towards wind energy. Her control over wind energy had definitely reached a pinnacle. That was similar to how pill cultivation controlled the flame. Her wind blades were the same as the flame weapons condensed by pill cultivators. They were formed from the compression of their body's spiritual energy and were extremely terrifying. Other than the wind blades in her hands, there were still countless thinner wind blades swirling around his body. Although they weren't as powerful as the ones in her hand, these wind blades could be controlled with her thoughts. They would shoot out whenever she wanted, causing people to be unable to defend. Only now did Tang Wanna release some of her true strength. Before she had just been probing him. This was the true fight. She must obtain the nine-leaf orchid. Boom. Lei Qianshang's pressure exploded out. The thunder force around his body increased as it collided with Tang Wan'er's wind blades. Lei Qianshang's body was completely covered by thunderbolts. His body was as hard as iron, and against those wind blades which were more terrifying than sharp swords, he used his fist to resist them, releasing continuous booming. He was not the slightest bit inferior. But the more intense the fight, the more excited Lei Qianshang became. Tang Wan'er's strength had exceeded his expectations. If he could conquer such a woman, that would definitely be the greatest accomplishment of his lifetime. His body was incomparably powerful. If he could obtain the 9-leaf orchid, he would power up to a whole new level. And so he also definitely refused to give up. As Lei Qianshang and Tang Wan'er's fighting reached its peak, Zhao Wu had already reached Long Chen. He sinister laughed. "Brat, now that you have no third-rank magical beast, I want to see whether you can still be so insolent." Long Chen's expression became a bit strange. It seemed everyone had already assumed all his strength had disappeared along with little snow. Did he really look so modest? "If you are sensible, then you will immediately kneel and beg for mercy." Zhao Wu stopped a dozen meters from Long Chen with his arms behind his back. Long Chen shook his head at him. "I really want to know, will you spoiled disciples die if you don't put on an act of strength? Why don't you look at your own turtle shells and see if they're hard enough? Frankly speaking, you guys are just a bunch of bumpkins who have yet to see the world." Long Chen was truly disgusted with these disciples from powerful families who acted so arrogantly and aloof. It really was irritating to see them constantly holding their nose in the air, looking at him with his chin. He had been so respectful in front of Lei Qianshang, but now in front of Long Chen, he had become an aloof and arrogant lord. It was truly sickening. "Your mouth is really disagreeable. Perhaps I'll beat your mouth first." Zhao Wu's face sunk and he coldly shouted. Stamping his food, he had already disappeared, leaving behind only an afterimage as he charged at Long Chen. He sent a slap directly for Long Chen's cheek. "As you wish." Long Chen didn't even think about and also sent out a palm. Long Chen's palm landed on Zhao Wu's palm, causing an intense explosion. Qi waves frantically surged out. Zhao Wu had never imagined Long Chen's palm would contain such shocking strength. He felt as if his palm had collided with some huge mountain. His hand almost broke. He was knocked back, his hand unbearably sore, his heart trembling. Zhao Wu was also a genius who rarely had anyone who could fight with him on the same level. He was extremely arrogant, and other than Lei Qianshang, he had never admired anyone else. And his powerful combat strength had been noticed by Lei Qianshang and he had become his right-hand man. But he had immediately lost out after just one exchange with Long Chen. How could he not be shocked? "It should be my turn now, right?" Long Chen had already arrived right in front of the shocked Zhao Wu. Sending out a palm, he directly sent out a slap on his cheek, the exact same move as before. "You're asking for death." Zhao Wu roared. Long Chen was planning on giving him a public slap in the face. That was the first time anyone had ever treated him like this. His fury immediately soared. Blood qi exploded and qi waves surged out. Shouting loudly, he smashed his palm at Long Chen. Boom. This time the collision was even greater than last time. Even those people fighting below were disturbed. After the collision, they saw one person miserably being knocked back. With a shocked cry, people realized that person was Zhao Wu. Other than Tang Wan, everyone present thought Long Chen would be ruthlessly oppressed. But the result was that Zhao Wu was sent flying. That was completely out of their expectations. Zhao Wu was able to fight alone against 3 members of Tang Wan'er's faction. His strength was obvious to anyone. Of course, Zhao Wu was also extremely shocked. To him, it felt like Long Chen was a huge mountain, and no matter how he tried, he was still completely minute in front of him. Suddenly he felt a sharp pain over his face and he was once more sent flying back. A clear ringing echoed throughout the battlefield. Along with Zhao Wu, a couple teeth that were still stained with blood flew through the air. It felt as if time had frozen that image. Everyone watched with horror at that icy figure. Long Chen truly appeared like a war god, his incredible imposingness making him a completely different person than his previous mischievously smiling self. Even Lei Qianshang and Tang Wan'er were given a fright. Zhao Wu's strength was something they clearly knew. Tang Wan'er had always suspected Long Chen was an expert and should have been able to handle Zhao Wu, allowing her to focus against Lei Qianshang. But she had never imagined that he would defeat him so quickly. In front of Long Chen, Zhao Wu was almost unable to withstand a single blow. Furthermore, she could tell that Long Chen hadn't used the slightest bit of spiritual qi. He had only used the power of his physical body. In other words, he hadn't even used any of his real power. Although Zhao Wu was nothing in her eyes, to be able to defeat him so easily meant that Long Chen was a true expert. At the same time as she was shocked, she also found it funny. Originally, she had only tricked Long Chen into joining her faction in order to punish him for being so rude to her. She really hadn't expected for her to have accidentally grabbed a powerful expert to her side. No wonder Yi Zhiqiu had gone to try to pull Long Chen in. It seemed it was Yi Zhiqiu who had realized Long Chen's strength the earliest. Thinking about it, she was also shocked at how perceptive Yi Zhiqiu's vision was. The entire battlefield had slowed down because of Long Chen. Although they were still fighting, the majority of their focus had now shifted to him. "Bastard, I'll kill you." Zhao Wu was in disbelief as he held his cheek, feeling his empty teeth sockets. He let out a hysterical howl. He was a proud genius, one who his family had doted on greatly. When would he have ever received such humiliation? His fury soared as he sinisterly and bitterly glared at Long Chen. "Idiot, are you the only one allowed to beat others while others can't beat you? Is that the stupid logic of disciples from powerful families?" sneered Long Chen. Zhao Wu angrily roared and suddenly his clothes exploded, leaving behind only his trousers. Black scales covered his bare flesh. Even his face was becoming covered with scales, appearing extremely frightening. As the scales covered his body, his aura became increasingly terrifying. "Beast transformation?" Someone shouted out in shock. This was clearly a kind of battle skill. By refining a magical beast's essence blood, it was possible to release a portion of a magical beast's strength. Long Chen was also somewhat surprised. This was the second time he was encountering beast transformation, the first time being against Huang Chang at the Phoenix Cry Lantern Festival. But Zhao Wu had even greater ability than Huang Chang. Even his head was being covered with scales, and his pressuring aura was much stronger. "Bastard, I'll kill you!" Zhao Wu roared and stamped on the ground. Just that one stamp created a large hole in the ground. He shot forward like a cannonball. His scale-covered fist was like a large hammer as it smashed at Long Chen. Before his fist even arrived, the air had become unable to endure such pressure and was beginning to whistle, space trembling. What a terrifying punch! Some people cried out. No wonder Zhao Wu had become Lei Qianshang's right hand. This kind of strength was too frightening. Tang Wan'er was frightened and icily said, "When Zhao Wu undergoes beast transformation, even his reasoning will become chaotic and explosive. Are you not afraid of him accidentally taking someone's life? If someone killed another during this trial, they would be expelled from the monastery." This was to preserve everyone's safety, preventing their disciples from massacring each other. Lei Qianshang merely sneered, "What does your people's life and death have to do with me? Within the monastery, just I, Lei Qianshang, can be the only main character. You other minor characters aren't crucial." Tang Wan'er icily shouted in reply, and a wind blade sliced out, forcing Lei Qianshang to retreat. She was just about to rush over to Long Chen. "You should take care of yourself." Lei Qianshang coldly snorted and Thunder Force suddenly appeared below his feet. He shot over and blocked Tang Wan'er, cutting off her path. Tang Wan'er forcefully received Lei Qianshang's attack and was forced back a couple steps. She raged, "Do you not even care about your own subordinates? Who cares about them? Supporting characters are only there to serve the main character. This is their fate," indifferently said Lei Qianshang. Tang Wan'er's beautiful face became icy. slowly folding her hands before her chest, a terrifying energy condensed between her hands. "You bastard, I'll show just who is the minor character." Boom! The energy within Tang Wanner's hands had just begun to condense when the ground suddenly trembled intensely before she could finish. Chi waves exploded out and Tang Wanner looked into the distance with shock. Chapter 142. I want to see if I can. An explosion shook heaven and earth. Dust filled the air as chi waves surged out like angry waves. Despite being separated by hundreds of meters, that terrifying energy still made it difficult for others to breathe. Tang Wanner looked over in shock, stopping what she was doing. Lei Qianshang also paused to look. What? When the chi waves scattered, everyone saw where the two people had been fiercely fighting. That had been the edge of the valley, near the cliff. People were shocked to see that part of the cliff had been completely destroyed. As the smoke gradually cleared, it revealed Long Chen, his long hair dancing and his clothes fluttering, looking just like a celestial emperor. Around 30 meters in front of him was Zhao Wu. He was now half kneeling on the ground. Zhao Wu's right arm was broken in several places. In fact, bone was sticking out in some spots. He was drenched in blood. He was blankly staring with disbelief. He seemed to have yet to realize blood was flowing from his mouth and had covered his body. The entire battlefield was deathly silent now. Zhao Wu had used his strongest techniques and had still been so severely injured. That was something hard to accept for everyone here. If Zhao Wu's opponent had been a monster-class opponent like Lei Qianshang, then they would be able to accept that, but that wasn't the case. Everyone's hearts were nervously beating. There were originally 5 monster-class geniuses. Was this the birth of a 6th? Cough. Zhao Wu suddenly underwent a coughing fit. As he coughed, more and more blood came up, frightening others. Now everyone understand that it wasn't just his arm that was broken. Even his inner organs must have been greatly damaged. They just didn't know whether his life was in danger. "Long Chen, you bastard, I'll kill you." Zhao Wu cursed at Long Chen between his coughs off blood. It was impossible for him to accept this matter. He had always thought that he was completely unparalleled other than against the 5 monster-class experts. He always considered himself the number 1 person below the monster class. But now he had been defeated by some nameless brat. That caused him to sink into madness. With just your kind of conduct, even if you cultivated for another 10,000 years, you still wouldn't be able to kill me. All you would do is waste 10,000 years of resources to make 10,000 years of crap. Long Chen shook his head. Zhao Wu's previous attack truly had been powerful. In the moment they had collided, Long Chen had summoned his Feng Fu battle armor, heavily injuring him with a punch. Now Long Chen had seen through more and more secrets of the Feng Fu battle armor. His usage of it had become much more skilled. He had now realized that if he hadn't called out his divine ring, summoning the Feng Fu battle armor wouldn't cause anything strange. Unless people were looking at his eyes, there were no other major changes. And after countless tests, Long Chen had become extremely adept at using it. He could now summon the Feng Fu battle armor only during the moment he attacked, allowing him release an explosive strength. Once he finished releasing that power, he would immediately put it away. That way he could save on the amount of his Feng Fu star's energy. He would no longer just foolishly keep it summoned the whole time, wasting that precious energy. Furthermore, this way he could conceal its existence, not drawing other people's attention. While many people had felt that previous exchange had been a bit strange, they were unable to tell what part of it was strange. "Long Chen, you half-breed son of a bitch, if you have the guts then kill me." Zhao Wu seemed to have already lost all reasoning at this time. Realizing he was unable to move his body anymore, he began to wildly curse. Long Chen's expression became icy and a cold, killing intent radiated off of him as he walked over to Zhao Wu. "Long Chen, don't. If you kill him, you'll be expelled from the monastery." Tang Wanner couldn't help warning him when she saw what he was doing. Long Chen seemed to have not heard. Walking right up next to the heavily injured Zhao Wu, his eyes didn't contain the slightest emotion. He was the very embodiment of the Grim Reaper. You've lost, but due to your pathetic ego, you refuse to admit your loss. So you begin to act like a shrew and shout curses at me in order to relieve your own heart's terror and unwillingness. You want to use the monastery's rules to suppress me. If I don't dare kill you because of the monastery's rules, it'll let you feel like you've thwarted me despite losing in body. Of course, this is your only option. Although it's a bit disgraceful, this is your only play you have against me right now. But unfortunately, you don't know me. You shouldn't have insulted my family. You shouldn't have touched upon my taboo. Since you did, you will die. Long Chen might be talking to Zhao Wu, but the entire crowd was completely silent, so each of his words rang out clearly in everyone's ears. Long Chen's analysis was completely on point, revealing all of what Zhao Wu had been thinking. Everyone was immediately filled with disdain for Zhao Wu. But they also felt as if something was wrong. If he knew he was intentionally provoking him, why was he still intent on taking the bait? Long Chen, you fool, he's intentional provoking you. Seeing that Long Chen had clearly seen through it all and was still acting this, Tang Wanner cried out in fear and alarm. Although she had previously tricked Long Chen, that was just because of her vengeful nature. Of course, if she was offended, she had to repay that. It didn't mean she had a bad heart. Now that she saw Long Chen had limitless potential and was so powerful, she naturally couldn't endure watching him jumping into a trap and be kicked out of the monastery. That would completely sever his future prospects. Long Chen, your sister Wanner's follower, so her words are orders. By acting like this, you are being disloyal. Didn't you want to be a good person? Qin Yu also added in her own persuasions. But when she put it that way, everyone frowned. It didn't seem there was anyone who tried to persuade people like that, was there? Ah, Long Chen, so what if I curse you? You're just a bastard, a son of a bitch. If you have the ability, then kill me. I'm waiting for you. If you don't dare kill me, then you're just a 100% son of a bitch, ha. Zhao Yu had been crazily laughing when he let out a miserable scream. Long Chen's foot had firmly stamped down on his leg, causing cracking sounds to ring out as it broke. Long Chen had a complete understanding of the body structure. The place he had stepped on was 3 inches below the knee. There was an acupuncture point there. It was the most concentrated point of nerves of pain. By stepping there, the tip of his toe only had to lightly press slightly to cause his pain to immediately multiply tenfold. Ah! Zhao Yu's miserable scream rang out loud and clear, causing everyone to get goosebumps. Seeing him torment the miserable Zhao Wu, everyone felt their hearts turn numb. What I dare do and don't dare to doesn't matter. I just want to see whether you really do possess unyielding character to face death fearlessly, but unfortunately, it seems a trash person like you doesn't possess that. Long Chen shook his head regretfully. He once more pressed down with his foot, breaking Zhao Wu's other leg in the same way as the other one. Before, Zhao Wu had been repeatedly screaming, but this time he wasn't even able to scream. Veins bulged on his forehead, his eyes almost popped out, his face turned purple as his scream was choked, his body incessantly trembling. Ah, how strange. Someone like yourself, a hero who can ignore the fear of death, must definitely have an unyielding character. But it seems I can't find where that is. I guess it's not on your legs. Perhaps it's in your arms? Or perhaps your back? Please excuse me for being an amateur. Endure it for a bit, I'll find it quickly. Long Chen softly consoled him, his gaze landing on his arm. Long Chen, you son of a bitch, you won't have a good death. If you have the guts, then kill me. Zhao Wu sinisterly cursed. Oh, I'll definitely kill you. But first I want to find that unyielding character of yours. Long Chen shook his head. Crack, crack. Painful cracking noises continued to ring out from Zhao Wu's body. Everyone felt their scalps turn numb. They were all disciples from powerful families, each of them being a high and aloof existence. Chapter 143 Blame Yourself. Ah! Zhao Wu was engulfed in flames. He miserably screamed out, as with his heavily injured body, it was impossible for him to use spiritual qi to protect his body. He could only endure the flames roasting. He madly struggled, but his throat was caught by Long Chen and so he could only remain within the flames. Finally he began to feel fear. He now realized that the moment he had insulted Long Chen had ceased having any intentions of letting him off. Long Chen had already decided to kill him at that time. It was laughable that he had then continuously provoked Long Chen, saying he didn't dare kill him. Long Chen's words had been entirely correct. The famous and power Zhao Wu had been unable to accept being defeated by Long Chen. And so since he couldn't beat him, he had come up with an idea to anger him to death. Thus he had begun to insult Long Chen, thinking that he couldn't do anything to him with the monastery's rules in place. As for whatever that Dao heart was, Long Chen had overestimated him. He still hadn't reached the level where he knew about it. "Stop. I admit defeat, quickly stop." Zhao Wu cried out in fear. That was because he was horrified to find he was already being burnt black. In just a moment he really would be burned alive. Long Chen wasn't releasing his full flame strength. He was no saint who would forgive anything. He would never forgive those who insulted his parents. Although his face was calm, his heart was filled with fury. That was especially the case when it came to his mother. She was his absolute taboo. If anyone dared to touch upon her, they would definitely die. And so Long Chen was using his weakest flame to roast Zhao Wu. That was in order to warn everyone not to touch upon his taboos. "Long Chen, stop. It's not worth it for you to kill him." Qin Yu couldn't help shouting out when she saw how grave and icy he was. Long Chen turned to glance at her. Although she was definitely too long-winded and pesky, she truly had a good heart. "Thank you. But those who insult my mother, no matter who, must die." Long Chen's words were extremely resolute. "Long Chen, you fool, even if you want to kill someone, you have to look at the situation. You're ruining your future. Did you become stupid?" Tang Wan'er was infuriated. Martial artists must have an unstoppable determination. No matter what obstacles block their path, they either have to step over them or smash them apart. They cannot avoid them. Otherwise, how could they maintain their resolution? Some obstacles can't be avoided. And if you aren't able to step over them, then you must completely smash them apart and viciously stamp them under your feet. After saying that, Long Chen's flame exploded in strength. "Oh, Long Chen, I'm sorry. I beg you, forgive me." Zhao Wu fearfully begged. He had thought Long Chen wouldn't dare kill him, and that was why he had said such vicious things. But now when he realized he was truly facing death, he was completely terrified. "Sorry, you're too late." Suddenly his flame explosively grew to a height of dozens of meters, its heat causing even space to warp. Then the flames completely faded and the world returned to calm. Long Chen was still in his previous position, but Zhao Wu had disappeared. A breeze blew by, dragging away the last bits of ash on his hand. A generation's genius had disappeared from the world just like that. He died. People felt as if their hearts were about to stop. Long Chen had really killed Zhao Wu. Wasn't that a provocation against the Xiantian monastery? "It's over." Tang Wan'er was incredibly upset. She even wanted to give Long Chen a beating. That scoundrel was usually so cunning, and yet he was such an idiot now. Now that he had broken the monastery's rules, even she couldn't save him. Tang Wan'er couldn't bear seeing such a genius be expelled just like that. Qin Yu was just foolishly looking at Long Chen. Even she had nothing to say at this time. Long Chen was completely obstinate. Despite clearly knowing the consequences, he had still done such a thing. Suddenly 4 figures appeared. Their white robes had the insignia of the Xiantian monastery, the same robes as the senior apprentice brothers who had inspected their registration cards. "Long Chen, you've killed a fellow registrant. You are expelled," one of them icily said. The entire crowd was deathly silent. Looking from those 4 and back to Long Chen, they couldn't say anything. But there was one person who was excited. That would have to be Lei Qiansheng. He wanted to see whether Long Chen could still stay so unperturbed while being expelled. Senior apprentice brothers, actually Tang Wan'er wanted to go help Long Chen. But that person waved his hand. No need to explain anything. We're just following the monastery's rules. You don't need to waste your breath. Tang Wan'er could only helplessly close her mouth. Her eyes reddened as she looked at Long Chen and she almost teared up. Long Chen, I'm sorry. If it weren't for me, perhaps it wouldn't have been like this. Tang Wan'er was somewhat choked with emotion. If it weren't for her, Long Chen wouldn't have fought with Zhao Wu, and so this would never have happened. Putting it bluntly, Long Chen had been implicated because of her. In other words, it was her fault he had ruined his life. She felt as if a knife was stabbing her heart. It's not your fault. It's just my luck was bad to run into a madman. Long Chen shook his head. But his words only made Tang Wan'er feel even worse. She wished Long Chen would curse her inside. Perhaps that would make her feel better than this. Shut up. You've broken the monastery's rules, so you've already lost the right to participate in this trial. Hand over your registration card. You can get lost. One of the four with a sword on his hip frowned impatiently. Who do you think you are to tell me to get lost? Icily snorted Long Chen disdainfully. Long Chen's words immediately caused everyone's jaws to drop. What was Long Chen thinking? Had he really become crazy? To dare contradict these senior apprentice brothers, did he have a death wish? These senior apprentice brothers were all true muscle rebirth experts. Talking like that to them, he must really be tired of living. That person's expression changed and he narrowed his eyes. Slowly placing his hand on his sword hilt, he sinisterly said, "If you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. I guarantee you'll be dead within 3 moves. Even a cannon fodder dares speak so arrogantly. If I advanced to the muscle rebirth realm, I could kill you with a single slap. You ended up frustrated that you're so weak amongst your peers that you came here to show off to the weaker newcomers. Were you looking for fair ground?" Snorted Long Chen. That person angrily raged, "You're asking for death. That's enough." Suddenly the first person who had arrived waved his hand to stop that person. To Long Chen he said, "Although you might be a talent, the monastery's rules cannot be changed by anyone. So please leave." That person truly was regretful. He clearly sympathized with Long Chen, so his words were still very polite. "Senior apprentice brother, Junior wishes to know just what rule I have broken. Please tell me so that I can accept it wholeheartedly." Long Chen also returned that politeness back to him. "Senior apprentice brother Chong, just make him leave. There's no need to waste your time talking to such a long-winded troublemaker." That man who had been contradicted by Long Chen complained. "Did your mom and dad never teach you not to interrupt others while they are speaking? Do you not even know that that's rude?" Long Chen icily glared at him without the slightest bit of politeness. He really was starting to be irritated with this man constantly targeting him. Those previous senior apprentice brothers had mostly been extremely modest. How did some idiot like him pop up? That person was just about to angrily charge forward when he was pulled back by the other two. Senior apprentice brother Chong said to Long Chen, "According to the monastery's rules, within the trial region, the disciples taking the trial cannot maliciously take another one's life, or they will lose the right to participate in the trial." Senior apprentice brother, you really explained it well. Long Chen raised his thumb. "Stop bootlicking. Now that you can understand, hurry up and get lost." Icily said that previous person. "Holy crap, do you know how to stay quiet?" "I really am puzzled. You just get out of a prison and your balls hurt so you like to butt into conversation so much?" After saying that, Long Chen realized that the other senior apprentice brothers all had strange expressions. "Wait, did I really get it right? You really just got out of prison?" Long Chen looked at him in disbelief. "Bastard! Let go, I'll kill him." That person's expression immediately became ashen and he angrily shouted. "You too, bring junior apprentice brother Wu to patrol a different area. Leave this place to me," helplessly ordered senior apprentice brother Chong. Those two nodded and brought senior apprentice brother Wu away. As he was dragged away by the other two, he glared at Long Chen, mouthing at him to wait for him. For a moment, everyone's expressions were extremely odd. That reverence they had had for their powerful senior apprentice brothers had faded by quite a bit. Junior apprentice brother Wu has a bad temperament and was forced into seclusion by the elders. He only just came out yesterday. Anyways, back to the topic. Long Chen, you must leave. Hopefully you won't make it hard on me. That won't be good for you. Senior apprentice brother Chang, according to the monastery's rules, you cannot expel me. Long Chen shook his head. Oh. Senior apprentice brother Chang was startled. According to the Xiantian Monastery's trial regulations, 3rd section, line 7, within the trial region, disciples taking the trial cannot maliciously take other people's lives, or they will lose the right to participate in the trial. I trust that senior apprentice brother Chang should be very clear about that, so I won't say much. Within section, just what does the word malicious mean here? Can senior apprentice brother Chang explain it to this junior? Asked Long Chen. This, senior apprentice brother Chang paused for a moment. He understood Long Chen's meaning. It was Zhao Wu who had provoked him first, and also maliciously insulted him. Everything had been his own fault. So Long Chen had his own grounds to justify his killing of him, and it couldn't count as maliciously killing. You have an argument there. But I can't handle this matter. I'll have to report it to my superiors and have them make a decision. Senior apprentice brother Chang hesitated. This result was something no one had expected. Tang Wan'er's eyes brightened. Seeing Long Chen return to his previous crafty, rascally self, she relaxed inside. It appeared she had underestimated this scoundrel. At the same time, she thought of how she had actually begun to cry because of her guilt. Looking at Long Chen's back, she was both ashamed and angered. She had ended up losing face today. No need to report it. Zhao Wu's motive was wicked, and so he has only himself to blame. No one else, including Long Chen, is at fault. The trial may continue. An aged voice rang out from a distant location. Chapter 144, Fanning the Flames. That aged voice caused everyone to first blink in surprise. Then a storm of commotion immediately erupted. They're letting Long Chen off just like that? No one could understand that. Although Long Chen might have a somewhat reasonable argument, how could he just be let off just like that? That's not fair. One of Lei Qianshang's people indignantly spoke out. Obviously he was disappointed that the monastery hadn't expelled Long Chen. Idiot, didn't senior apprentice brother one already explain that there is no such thing as fairness within the monastery? The majority of the monastery's rules all favor the strong. Did you plug your ears and not hear? Someone immediately retorted from Tang Wan'er's faction. Obviously that person considered Long Chen as one of them. Previously they hadn't had enough people present. Furthermore, Lei Qianshang's side had possessed a powerful expert like Zhao Wu who had suppressed them, causing them to feel some anger inside. But then Long Chen had showed he was a powerful expert in his own right. He was immediately treated as one of them. After all, the strong were always popular and welcomed. Although what that person said wasn't polite, it was definitely a fact that the monastery's rules favored the strong. And once everyone thought of that, it immediately resolved that matter. If they wanted to talk about absolute fairness, then Lei Qianshang, Tang Wan'er, and the others would all have to receive the same treatment as them. That wouldn't be fair to them as monster-class geniuses. Yes, disciple understands. Senior apprentice brother Chang respectfully bowed towards a distant mountain peak. He then smiled slightly to Long Chen. Congratulations, you can continue participating in the trial. But next time take care. Wandering on the edge of the rules might be exciting, but one failure will not be recoverable from. This was a warning he gave him in goodwill. Although Long Chen had managed to get out through a technicality, that kind of conduct was extremely dangerous. If he had been judged guilty, he would have lost all his future prospects, and that would definitely not be worth it. Junior brother will engrave senior apprentice brother Chang's priceless words into my heart. This time junior brother was impulsive. Killing people is after all a low-class method. It's not something a smart person would do. Long Chen's earnest words caused an admiring smile appeared on senior apprentice brother Chang. Only a powerful expert who didn't become arrogant could go further on his path. So next time when I run into such a situation, I definitely won't kill him, but make him suffer a life worse than death. That way I can resolve my enmity without touching the monastery's rules. That's what a smart person would do. Long Chen acted as if he had come to a sudden comprehension. Senior apprentice brother Chang stiffened, but he then shook his head. You guys continue your trial. In any case, everything is up to yourselves. After saying that, he disappeared from the valley, leaving behind only the two factions. Now that senior apprentice brother Chang had left, Long Chen turned to look back at everyone who was staring at him. Tang Wan'er's side was clearly much more amicable to him, while Lei Qianshang's side was filled with hostility. But within that hostility was also a trace of fear. Lei Qianshang was also staring at Long Chen, his eyes filled with a gloomy chill. His battle intent was soaring, and he might charge out to attack him at any moment. You blue-haired gorilla, can you not stare at me with such worshipful eyes? I, Long Chen, don't like taking in any junior brothers, so give up on that dream. Furthermore, with that appearance of yours that even your grandparents couldn't love, are you really chasing after our beautiful fairy sister one? You really are a horse who doesn't even know his face is long. Do you know how to feel a sense of shame? And have you never heard that birds of a feather flock together? Humans stick in groups, but I've always wondered whether the workers of the monastery are really even taking their work seriously for them to have accepted an ugly magical beast like yourself, unsympathetically insulted Long Chen. Hearing him insult Lei Qianshang like this, the entire crowd was alarmed. Just what were Long Chen's guts made out of? He had only just managed to escape from being expelled from the monastery. But he now acted as if nothing had happened and was provoking a monster-class existence. Both factions' people all looked towards Lei Qianshang. His face had turned dark from rage. Lei Qianshang's skin had never been pale, so with his darkened expression, everyone suddenly saw that Long Chen's vision truly had been correct. The current Lei Qianshang truly did look like a gorilla. Long Chen, don't make trouble. Tang Wan'er was actually already laughing inside, but she still kept herself composed on the outside as she quickly chided Long Chen. She was afraid Lei Qianshang's fury would explode out. Although Long Chen had displayed an extremely great strength just now, that didn't mean he could stand shoulder to shoulder with a monster-class genius. Sister Wan, you don't need to persuade me. I'm just taking your place to feel wronged. Long Chen used his sleeve to cover his face and put on a huge act of trying to hold back his sobs. You are all definitely monster-class existences. But 4 of you are people, so why did they have to add a gorilla amongst you? Isn't that a complete curse against you guys? That's especially the case for you and Sister Jiqiu. You are both fairies who have descended amongst us mere mortals. For this fellow to be considered one of you is practically a blaspheme. Sister Wanu, you are the goddess of our hearts, grand and sacred. We definitely can't allow others to tarnish your image, am I right, everyone? As he spoke, his voice became impassioned, filled with righteous indignation. His last, infectious words were shouted to Tang Wan'er's people. The majority of them were men. They had long since formed a sense of admiration for Tang Wan'er, considering her as a heavenly existence. But they had never dared say anything. Long Chen's current words immediately resonated with them. Hearing his words, they all passionately shouted together. Yes, we won't let anyone tarnish Sister's image. Long Chen laughed inside. He had to complete his act. With red eyes he loudly shouted, Sister, look! In us brothers' hearts, you are our goddess, our religion. We won't let anyone blaspheme you. But look, what does this gorilla do? He doesn't have the slightest understanding of what it means to be gentle with a beautiful woman. He actually dares fight against you. Your dirty gorilla claws have already committed a sin against the very heavens. We will never forgive you. Long Chen pointed to Lei Qianshang's faction. As for you small monkeys following this gorilla to make trouble, your sins also cannot be forgiven. Brothers, what are you still waiting for? Raise your fists and defend our holy goddess. Use your passion to display your sincerity to our goddess. We will heroically drive these monkeys out of our sight. Brothers, charge. By the time he finished speaking, Long Chen had already begun to charge towards Lei Qianshang's faction. Those people were still in a daze when Long Chen arrived in front of them. A single fist smashed into one dazed youth. When Tang Wanner's people saw Long Chen's punch, their passions were completely ignited and they charged forward. We pledge our lives to defend Sister Wanner's purity and defeat the gorilla. Who knew whether it was because of Long Chen's words or whether they had always possessed such a desire, but as soon as one person shouted out, everyone repeated their battle cry. We pledge our lives to defend Sister Wanner's purity and defeat the gorilla. Dozens of blood condensation cultivators shouted together, their voices shaking the heavens. Their cry could be heard hundreds of miles away. The chaotic battle once more started, but this time with Long Chen's addition, Tang Wanner's side had exploded in power. Although they still had fewer people, they were completely suppressing their opponents. As for Tang Wanner, she was watching blankly as her people's combat strength skyrocketed. She had no idea what was going. What goddess? What blaspheme? What were they talking about? Long Chen, you're asking for it? Lei Qianshang finally couldn't endure it anymore and cursed, charging at Long Chen. Your opponent is me. Tang Wanner extended her hand, sending out wind blades that completely blocked Lei Qianshang. Tang Wanner, this Long Chen is too excessive. Are you sure you want to protect him? Lei Qianshang's expression was extremely gloomy. Today he had truly been infuriated. Even another person probably wouldn't be able to endure Long Chen's words, let alone Lei Qianshang with his explosive temperament. He's one of my people, so of course I will protect him. Tang Wanner's words were completely reasonable, but in Lei Qianshang's ears they had another meaning. A brutal killing intent exploded from him. Then I'll kill him. Lei Qianshang ground his teeth as his killing intent surged. Tang Wanner was startled, not understanding why Lei Qianshang would suddenly become so tyrannical. But she still shook her head. With me present, don't even think of touching him. Ah! Lei Qianshang felt as if he might explode from his anger. With a roar that shook the land, the thunderbolts around his body became a complete set of armor around him. His terrifying aura exploded. Hee, the gorilla has changed clothes. Although Long Chen might appear to be completely focused on the fighting, he actually was just randomly wandering around the crowd. Most of his focus was on Lei Qianshang. Tang Wanner's expression changed slightly and she clapped her hands together before her. Her aura surged and her long hair danced. Hundreds of large and small wind blades formed around her body, constantly revolving. They were like hundreds of flower petals dancing in the air, setting off against Tang Wanner's body to make it look like she had just walked out of a painting. How beautiful! Long Chen couldn't hold back from exclaiming inside. That kind of beauty was something no one else could compare to. This kind of technique was incredibly graceful. More importantly, their fight had now progressed to a new level. The previous wind blades she had summoned were just empty bodies. But these ones she had summoned were practically solid, and it was almost possible to see veins on top the wind blades. To condense formless wind energy into a weapon that was practically solid, and in such numbers, proved just how terrifying Tang Wanner's wind soul was. The two of their auras were continuously climbing, becoming more and more terrifying. Space was trembling because of them, even beginning to twist. Atop a distant mountain peak hundreds of miles away was Tu Feng. He sighed. The sect leader truly does have a great vision. This Long Chen truly is unstable. I even suspect that the sect leader intentionally got injured to throw this mess in my lap. Whatever. I'll just let them mess around. Watching them really is vexing. I'll go back and just wait for the final news. Tu Feng shook his head and disappeared from atop a huge tree. The only sign he had even moved was the slight quivering of the tree. Tang Wan, let me ask you again. Are you really planning on blocking me? Icily asked Lei Qianshang. As I said, with me here, you are unable to harm him. Wind blades surged around her body as she replied indifferently. Then I'll have to offend you. Lei Qianshang roared and light exploded from his body. Stamping on the ground, he charged at Tang Wan. Chapter 145 Sinister Method. Lei Qianshang's fist shot out. Thunder force covered his fist as it whistled over to Tang Wana. Tang Wana was completely serious as a long sword-like wind blade in her hand slashed out. With an explosive bang, Tang Wana's wind blade directly collapsed from Lei Qianshang's force. But Lei Qianshang's fist only paused for a moment before continuing forward. Tang Wana's expression didn't change in the slightest when her hand's wind blade collapsed. With a wave of her hand, the wind blades around her surged in front of her, forming a wall of wind blades. Lei Qianshang's fist smashed into the wind blade wall. That wall trembled several times, but it didn't break, blocking his fist. Lei Qianshang was shocked. He was the most clear about how powerful his fist was. Having used this thunder force, this fist had never failed to defeat enemies in the same realm as him. But Tang Wana's expression was still completely indifferent, as if blocking him wasn't taxing at all. He suddenly realized he had underestimated her. None of the monster class experts could be underestimated. He once more shouted and punched out. As for Tang Wana, she retreated slightly, floating back several meters gracefully, dodging his fist. At the same time, she formed a seal with her hands and an enormous spiritual strength welled out of her. Those floating wind blades began to revolve around her body. Hundreds of meters away from them was the battle between their two factions. However, at this time their battle had essentially ended. Lei Qianshang's people had all been defeated, huge bumps covering their faces. They could only lie on the ground in pain. As for Long Chen, he was on the winning side and his entire focus was on their battle now. He wanted to see what the result of their fight would be. The others, on the other hand, were worshipfully looking at their goddess while Long Chen silently estimated the two of their strengths. This was the first time he had seen such terrifying geniuses. The two of them were definitely monsters, existences that were unmatched in the same realm. He wanted to know just how powerful the two of them really were. When Tang Wana's spiritual strength spread out, Long Chen was greatly startled. He had never thought Tang Wana's spiritual strength was so exquisite. Although he had been tricked by her once, at that time he hadn't had any defenses up and so he hadn't considered it to be that impressive. But now he was truly given a fright. At the same time, now that her spiritual strength had spread out, he immediately understood Tang Wana's method of fighting. As he guessed, once her spiritual strength spread out, those flying wind blades immediately seemed to come to life and began to buzz. Phoenix Plume Arrow. All the wind blades converged into one, forming a 3-meter-long arrow. That arrow's appearance caused space to incessantly tremble. When the arrow was completely formed, it appeared as if an invisible bow had appeared and knocked it back before it shot straight at Lei Qianshang with a strength that could split apart heaven and earth. Lei Qianshang was greatly shocked. He found it difficult to even breathe in the face of this arrow. He could even feel the sensation of death coming from this terrifying arrow. Rushing Thunder Fist. Lei Qianshang finally became aware of how frightening Tang Wana was. Putting away his previous contempt of her, he shouted and his whole body's thunder force circulated. Countless concentrated thunderbolts gathered over his fist as he punched out. Boom! When the fist and arrow collided, a dazzling radiance exploded out. The wind blades collapsed, transforming into a terrifying hurricane that wildly surged out, enveloping everything. Everyone run! Long Chen hastily shouted out to everyone. He knew Tang Wana's wind blades were all formed from wind energy. Once they exploded, it would release a powerful energy no different from explosives. And once hundreds of wind blades exploded together, that would be exceedingly horrifying. Everyone quickly fell back when they heard Long Chen's cry. But even so, they were still swallowed by that wave of qi. Some of the weaker cultivators were even sent flying, spitting out blood. Long Chen stood at the front. This kind of qi wave wouldn't pose any threat to him. But he was still shaken by that incredible exchange. When the qi wave finally scattered, Lei Qianshang looked at his fist in disbelief. A small bit of blood was slowly dripping from his fist. Obviously he had been at the disadvantage during that exchange. His thunder force had been unable to completely block Tang Wanner's wind blades, causing him to be wounded. Although his wound was extremely light and it had only just broken through the skin, Lei Qianshang was completely unable to accept this result. His Lei family's thunder force protecting the body had been praised as the strongest armor-like battle skill. Up till now, he had never received any wounds. Do you want to continue? Tang Wanner lightly brushed a fallen strand of hair behind her ear. Although you injured me, your wind blades were also completely destroyed by me. So we're both even, snorted Lei Qianshang. He wasn't necessarily wrong. Although Tang Wanner had injured him, the wind blades she had condensed with her wind energy had also been destroyed. On the surface it did look like both sides were even. But although Tang Wanner had used up her wind energy, Lei Qianshang had also used up his thunder force. It was actually more accurate to say that Lei Qianshang truly had lost by a bit. If you want to say we're even, then that's fine. I also don't feel the need to continue this. Your army has already been completely defeated, so according to our agreement, this 9-leaf orchid will be mine, said Tang Wanner. Lei Qianshang's expression was somewhat gloomy. Previously they had noticed the 9-leaf orchid at the same time and made an agreement that whichever side was stronger would obtain it. This agreement naturally included their underlings. Originally Lei Qianshang's people were stronger, but Long Chen's arrival had changed everything. Looking at Long Chen watching him completely carefree as if he was a spectator who had bought a ticket to a play, Lei Qianshang became completely infuriated. You can take it, but you must receive one of my fists, icily shouted Lei Qianshang, his whole body's thunder force once more circulate. Since you want to, then just come. Tang Wanner's expression sunk. She hadn't expected Lei Qianshang to be this shameless and refused to accept his own defeat, causing her to feel some fury. She once more summoned her wind blades, but this time there were more than double the amount. Lei Qianshang turned a blind eye to Tang Wanner's fury. A ball of light slowly formed in his hand. That ball was completely condensed of thunder force. A terrifying pressure came from it. Take care! Holding that ball of thunder force, Lei Qianshang charged at Tang Wanner. Tang Wanner icily smiled. That thunder ball might be powerful, full of an explosive energy, but it was unable to leave his hand. He could only maintain it while it was in his hand. With her wind blades, as long just one touched that thunder ball, it would immediately explode. So in Tang Wanner's eyes, Lei Qianshang's actions had no meaning. It was nothing more than a bright firework. Tang Wanner had just prepared herself to use her wind blades to attack when Lei Qianshang suddenly disappeared from in front of her. Startled, her expression completely changed. Watch out, Long Chen. She didn't know what footwork Lei Qianshang had used, but somehow he had suddenly blinked away, changing his direction to shoot at Long Chen like an arrow. A distance of hundreds of meters was crossed in just the blink of an eye. He smashed that thunderball right at Long Chen as he icily shouted, "Brat, you can die for me now." Long Chen himself had also never expected Lei Qianshang's target was him. By the time he reacted, Lei Qianshang had already arrived in front of him. It was already too late for him to dodge. Taking a deep breath, he punched out. Boom! Brilliant rays of light shot out, blinding everyone. Long Chen felt a huge force attack him, sending him flying back. His organs felt as if they were flipping inside. Countless violent strands of thunder force were constantly wrecking his body. After being knocked by dozens of meters, Long Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. Startled cries rang out from the crowd. Lei Qianshang, you're asking for it? Tang Wanner's voice was now full of fury. She had never thought Lei Qianshang would be so sly as to sneak attack Long Chen. A huge blade condensed from countless wind blades and slashed at Lei Qianshang. This time Tang Wanner was truly infuriated. Boom! The huge blade slashed apart the land, but Lei Qianshang had already predicted her reaction and had already jumped back by the time the huge blade had landed. Long Chen, you killed my right hand. I've given you a thunder seed. You'll feel the pain of thunder devouring your body for a whole night. That'll be my revenge for my junior brother. This matter ends here. We're leaving. Lei Qianshang waved his hand and was about to bring his people away. You want to leave? Do you think I'll let you? Tang Wanner's pretty face was covered in a chilling frost as she icily glared at Lei Qianshang. Obviously, she was planning on making him stay behind. Longchen, how are you? Qingyu was the first time over to Longchen. But she had only just touched his body when she let out a startled cry, her arm turning numb. Longchen's body was completely covered in thunder force. Anyone who touched him would also be attacked. Hee, Tang Wan, although I admire you, that doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. If you really want to fight till the end, I will accompany you, sneered Lei Qianshang. The trial had only just begun. Before the finale, everyone would reserve some strength to fight over the core disciple positions. And so they all had misgivings about using their full strength. But Lei Qianshang's conduct had truly infuriated Tang Wanner, and she was no longer thinking of that. Although she had tricked Long Chen at the beginning, that was just for revenge. But after what had happened with Zhao Wu, for some reason, his figure had slowly started to appear within her heart. Seeing Long Chen's injured immediately caused her fury to go out of control. As to why, even she didn't know. All she wanted now was to give Lei Qianshang a beating. Let him take a hike. A weak and slightly hoarse voice rang out. Tang Wanner turned to see that Long Chen had walked over. Long Chen gently rubbed the blood off his mouth. He indifferently said to Lei Qianshang, I underestimated you. Humph, this is the price of killing one of my people, coldly snorted Lei Qianshang. I never thought a gorilla would have the intelligence to launch a sneak attack against others. The times really are changing. Even the wild beasts are starting to think. It really is frightening. Long Chen sighed emotionally. You want to infuriate me? Keep dreaming. Just properly enjoy the thunder force destroying your body. Lei Qianshang laughed and brought his battered underlings away. He didn't notice that deep within Long Chen's eyes wasn't anger, but a trace of ridicule. Chapter 146. Give me mouth to mouth. Long Chen, are you okay? Tang Wanner worriedly asked Long Chen. She still felt guilty about this. She had been too careless just now, allowing Lei Qianshang to launch a sneak attack from a gap. She had once more harmed Long Chen. Great goddess, for you to care about me so much, could it be that you see me in a new light? Long Chen laughed, winking mischievously. That trace of guilt within her vanished without a trace. That powerful and heroic Long Chen had definitely been possessed or something. This infuriating hooligan was definitely the real him. Rascal, are you asking for death? Tang Wanner glared at him. That's right, I like you better this way, laughed Long Chen. You really are a scoundrel. I'm trying to properly talk to you. Hey wait, who cares what you like? You dare take advantage of me? Tang Wanner realized late what Long Chen had said and grabbed his collar. Hey, great goddess, aren't you damaging your image? Us brothers are all watching. Just now we fought with our lives, and now in the blink of an eye you want to get rid of us now that we're useless? With such cruel treatment, aren't you afraid of frightening your brothers? Long Chen innocently said. Tang Wanner blushed and only then realized everyone was watching her with shock. She hastily let go of Long Chen. Cough, this time everyone's display will be remembered by me. Once I obtain a core disciple position, I definitely won't forget to give everyone a reward. Okay, you can all leave now. Although you've all gathered the jade tiles, within this trial area are countless opportunities. Everyone should go test their luck. Time is precious, so don't tarry. After Tang Wanner finished speaking, everyone cheered. They had used this battle to show Tang Wanner their dedication. Now that that goal had been achieved, they all left one by one. In the end, only Tang Wanner, Long Chen, and Qingyu remained. Qingyu carefully picked that 9-leaf orchid and handed it to Tang Wanner. Tang Wanner fondled the 9-leaf orchid lovingly. She smiled happily, her eyes turning into crescent moons. Sister Qingyu, you can go as well to test your luck. Tang Wanner put away the 9-leaf orchid. If Qingyu leaves, doesn't that mean I'll be alone with Tang Wanner? Long Chen hastily said, Sister Qingyu, you can't leave. Qing Yu had been leaving when she paused, asking confused, "Why not? Do you need something?" "Cough. My injuries are extremely severe. I hope sister can stay by my side to tend to me. After all, I'm at least slightly closer with sister Qing Yu. What do you say?" Long Chen looked brightly at Qing Yu, praying she would agree with him. He was truly afraid of being alone with Tang Wan. Although Tang Wan was a gentle person, Long Chen always felt this girl was extremely dangerous. Of course, Qing Yu didn't know what Long Chen was thinking. Feeling that his words made sense, she nodded and was about to agree when Tang Wan interrupted. "Sister Qing Yu, Long Chen suffered his wounds because of me. I should be the one to tend to me, otherwise everyone would feel uneasy inside," she lightly said with an extremely guilty expression. Qing Yu nodded. You've finally grown up and know how to take care of others. This is a good thing. Us cultivators must definitely remember kindness and enmity. If you receive water, you must repay dash. Sister Qing Yu, Long Chen's wounds require a peaceful location to heal. How about you leave first?" Tang Wan smiled. "Okay, take care of yourself." Qing Yu nodded without noticing Long Chen's pleading gaze, leaving the valley. Now the only ones remaining in the valley were the two of them. A breeze blew by, chilling Long Chen's heart. Tang Wan looked at Long Chen. She smiled at him, her smile like a flower blooming. She didn't say anything. "Which beauty acts so scary? I feel like even my bones are shivering." Long Chen was somewhat scared by her staring. Normally being stared at by a beautiful woman was a kind of happiness, especially when it was a beauty that could bring the downfall of a nation. But when that beauty was harboring wicked thoughts, that was no blessing, but a curse. "Your guts are so big, so how could you be shivering?" Tang Wan laughed at him. Taking 2 steps forward, the distance between them closed even more. Long Chen involuntarily took a step back. "What are you thinking? Let me tell you straight away, even if you take my body, you'll never steal my heart." "Scoundrel!" Tang Wan grabbed his collar again and raged. "Who do you think I, Tang Wan, am? Do you think I care about a scoundrel like you? What body, what heart? How is your skin so thick?" Now that she had grabbed him, her face was extremely close to his. Although her face was full of fury, that beautiful face looked just like a honey peach, causing people to irresistibly desire to take a bite. Furthermore, her scent floated into his nose. Such an atmosphere could all too easily cause someone to be capricious. Even with Long Chen's determined willpower, he couldn't help swallowing his saliva. "Scoundrel, you dare look at me with such lecherous eyes. Do you believe me when I say I'll dig out your eyes?" Tang Wan raged when she saw how odd Long Chen was looking at her. Long Chen hastily closed his eyes. Chaotic thoughts were swirling in his head. He would rather fight with Lei Qianshang than face Tang Wan like this. "Scoundrel, are you provoking me by closing your eyes? You won't even look at me?" Tang Wan still didn't let him off like this. Long Chen couldn't help rolling his eyes now. This woman truly was a devil. Compared to her, Chu Yao and Meng Qi were too gentle. Thinking of them, his heart was filled with reminiscence. "That day you were clearly the one in the wrong, but you actually dared scold me, saying I had no shame. That's the first time I've ever been scolded by someone like that. Tell me, do you accept that you are a scoundrel?" Thinking back to what had happened that day, Tang Wan's fury grew even more. Long Chen had been staying silent this whole time when he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood that splashed onto Tang Wan. She was startled, realizing that Long Chen's face was becoming unhealthily pale. Only then did she remember that Long Chen had been sneak attacked by Lei Qianshang and had had a seed of thunder force planted into his body, heavily injuring him. "Sorry, I forgot you were injured." Tang Wan panicked. She gently lay him down to lean against a boulder. Long Chen truly was injured by Lei Qianshang's attack. His thunder force had been extremely insidious, using Long Chen's body as fuel to power itself. It was extremely difficult to eject. And that was why it was called a thunder seed. Once placed into someone's body, it would constantly wreck that person's insides, making them suffer endless pain. And Lei Qianshang had clearly known that Long Chen was powerful. This thunder force was formed from his body's core energy. Although it wouldn't kill Long Chen, it would be enough to make him suffer for months without being able to cultivate if not dealt with. However, he had still underestimated Long Chen's body. Back then, as long as he had wished to, he could have summoned his Feng Fu battle armor and eliminated this thunder force seed. But Long Chen hadn't done that. That was because he had thought of a certain problem from looking at Lei Qianshang's body. That problem was the heavenly punishment he had endured. That previous heavenly punishment had only tested Long Chen's willpower according to that spirit world expert. But even such a heavenly punishment had almost killed Long Chen. And Long Chen suspected that that heavenly punishment would definitely come for him again, and at that time it wouldn't just be testing his willpower. It would only be stronger. Lei Qianshang's thunder force caused him to think of a way to counter the heavenly punishment. In order to survive that heavenly punishment in the future, he should get his body accustomed to thunder and lightning, giving himself an immunity. That was a clumsy method. By constantly being struck by thunder and lightning, he could let his body become gradually accustomed to thunderbolts, forming a resistance. That was why he had been so focused on Lei Qianshang. Since Lei Qianshang already didn't like him, it would be better to just leave him as an enemy. In the future he wouldn't have to worry about not having fighting partners. When Lei Qianshang had launched his sneak attack against him, he had immediately thought of the possibility of leaving the thunder seed in his body. And so he had not blocked his attack, allowing the thunder force to invade his body. Not only had he not driven off the thunder force, he had closed off all his meridians to trap the thunder force within his body. However, Long Chen was not Lei Qianshang. This was the first time he had come into contact with thunder force, and furthermore he was dealing with it within his body, which was extremely exhausting. Wrangling with Tang Wan'er had caused his focus to split from the thunder seed. In that instant, the thunder force had harmed his inner organs, causing him to cough up blood. Hearing Tang Wan'er's voice suddenly become gentle, Long Chen's heart was moved. He decided to allow the thunder force to wreak havoc over his body, his aura becoming increasingly unstable. Sister Wa, I'm really sorry. I might be a scoundrel, but I hope you can forgive my crudeness. In reality, in my heart you are a sacred goddess that cannot be blasphemed against. I can sense that I'm dying. I hope you can forgive me and let me leave with my heart at ease. Long Chen's aura became chaotic, his eyes becoming unfocused. Tang Wan'er was given a great fright. At first she thought Long Chen was just acting, but when she used her spiritual strength to check, she was horrified to see that his internal organs had begun to fail. That was something that could not be faked. She was filled with panic. Long Chen, you'll be fine. I have excellent medicinal pills here. Here, take some. Tang Wan'er hastily took out medicinal pills from her spatial ring. Long Chen shook his head and weakly said, "It's useless. You should be able to sense that the thunder force had already filled every single one of my meridians. How could it be like this? That bastard Lei Qianshang was really too vicious." Tang Wan'er ground her teeth. She could tell it was exactly like Long Chen said. Her heart sunk. Thunder force invading the inner organs wasn't that bad. As long as he used his spiritual qi, he could slowly expel it. But once it had entered his meridians, that was like steel needles had stabbed through the meridians, destroying the structure of the meridians. Even if he managed to live, he would definitely be crippled. If Tang Wan'er's words were heard by Lei Qianshang, he would definitely cough up blood. Even if he was 1,000 times more ruthless, he wouldn't have let his thunder force invade other people's meridians like that. That was something that had only happened because Long Chen hadn't had any defense and had even drawn in the thunder force. It was something that could only have been accomplished because the two of them had worked together. Cough, cough. Long Chen went through an intense burst of coughs, his face flushed as if he had reached his limit. Breathing was becoming difficult and he was unable to speak. Long Chen pointed to his mouth and looked at Tang Wan'er pleadingly. Tang Wan'er's mouth dropped with disbelief. "You want me to give you mouth to mouth?" Chapter 147 Refining Thunder Force. Tang Wan's pretty face was blushing so hard she felt as if it was on fire. She was a woman. How could she give him mouth-to-mouth? But Long Chen was almost dead and seemed to have some final words for her. He wanted to speak but was unable to because he couldn't breathe properly. No, I definitely can't. Tang Wan's face was redder than an apple. She shook her head, embarrassed. Long Chen wanted to say something, but he didn't have enough air. He could only cough out a single word. The rest was just his mouth clacking as he was unable to say it. Long Chen's aura was growing weaker and weaker like a candle flickering in the wind. He might die at any moment. Tang Wan looked at him. Looking around, she saw that there was no one else present. Fine, since you're about to die, I'll let you say your final words. Tang Wan ground her teeth and slowly approached him. Long Chen's eyes brightened as he gratefully looked at her. Tang Wan's heart was pounding. Her cherry lips slowly approached Long Chen's mouth. Long Chen slowly closed his eyes. After being taken advantage of for this long, I'll finally get everything back plus interest. Long Chen was delighted inside. If others were to learn that Tang Wan had taken the initiative to give Long Chen a kiss, who knew how many people would be driven mad by jealousy? Long Chen was anticipating this when suddenly he felt a sharp pain on his thigh and couldn't help letting out a yelp. Aya! Long Chen opened his eyes to see Tang Wan smiling at him. One of her hands was viciously pinching Long Chen's thigh. Are you crazy? What are you doing pinching an almost dead man? Raged Long Chen. But then he immediately became expressionless. I'm exposed. Would an almost dead man have the energy to scold others? You really are an interesting, almost dead man. Right, now that I think about it, I was dying, but then I suddenly realized if I died, you would have to see a dead man and that would be too frightening for you, so I decided not to die. Long Chen awkwardly laughed. Then I think it'd be better if you died instead, you scoundrel. Tang Wan raised her fist and began pounding him. Long Chen hastily covered his head as she pummeled him. However, Tang Wan truly didn't have much power. This pounding was basically just an itch, and it was almost even comfortable for Long Chen. Eventually the pounding finally stopped. He didn't know whether she had grown tired or whether she had finally relieved all her anger. Get up. Let's have a proper conversation, said Tang Wan. Long Chen peeked out from behind his eyes and saw that Tang Wan had already stood up, her expression much more mild. Only then did he put down his hands and laugh. Sister Wan, how did you figure it out? Long Chen was incomparably depressed inside. He had just been about to get his spoils when the ending was ruined. He couldn't help being vexed. Most importantly, he had thought his acting had been completely flawless. His expressions, actions, and even his breathing had all been perfect. How did he fail? Although your acting was not bad, did you think you could trick me? But inside, Tang Wan truly sighed in relief from that close call. She had actually completely fallen for Long Chen's act at the beginning. It was only when he had closed his eyes that he had made a small mistake. Not far from Long Chen were some weeds and underbrush. With his lower leg exposed, he had brushed against a sage fruit. That fruit's hair contained a bit of toxicity. Although that toxicity wasn't strong, it was extremely itchy. Long Chen had been enduring the whole time, but when he had thought he was about to win, he had stealthily used his other foot to scratch his leg. Of course, the result was that Tang Wan had noticed. She had been extremely close and immediately realized he was fooling her. Would almost dead man go scratch an itch? At the same time, her spiritual strength had stealthily spread out to examine his body. When people died, their spiritual strength would become faint and would disappear along with them. But although he had hidden his spiritual strength extremely well, it was like a boundless ocean. How was that like someone who was about to die? Then seeing him expectantly waiting for her to give him mouth-to-mouth, she had immediately figured everything out. Her guilt became fury, and that was why she had pummeled Long Chen. Seeing that Tang Wan refused to tell him, however, Long Chen could only sigh and drop the subject. It was at this moment that the thunder force in his body once more surged, causing him to frown. Why were you stupid to send the thunder force to your meridians? If it was just harming your organs, I could help you. In just a couple days you would have been completely fine. But now that it has entered your meridians, even if the thunder force is expelled, your meridians will still be severely damaged. That will require a long time to recover, wasting your precious time. Tang Wana had no idea why he would do such a thing. It truly was incomprehensible. Furthermore, she knew Long Chen was extremely crafty. She was completely unable to guess his goal. Junior brother has blasphemed against a fairy and knows his sin is deep. This was my punishment, Long Chen sighed, but just as he said this, another sharp pain came from his thigh and he hastily said, "Stop pinching me." "Fine, I'll tell you the truth." Only then did Tang Wana let go, disdainfully look at him. "If you had said the truth earlier you could have avoided that. Why must you mess around so much?" Long Chen rubbed his thigh and suspiciously asked, "Guoran told me that you were the easiest to get along with amongst the top 5. Now I doubt his words." Tang Wana smiled sweetly for him. Her dimples and cherry lips truly did cause people to feel close to her. "Now you should feel much better, right?" Tang Wana's voice was intoxicating. "Yup." Long Chen couldn't stop himself from nodding. This version of Tang Wana was definitely the most alluring. What do you mean, yup? If you don't want to suffer, hurry up and tell me why you did this." Her face completely changed. That warmth disappeared to become anger. Long Chen sighed. Tang Wana had her warm, amicable side. She also had a violent, powerful side. Unfortunately, his luck was bad and he only ever got to see one of those sides. He knew he couldn't trick her anymore. Putting away his mischievous smile, he began to speak seriously. "I can tell you, but you must promise me you won't tell anyone." Seeing Long Chen suddenly become so serious, Tang Wana was startled. She actually didn't want to promise such a thing to him, but she still nodded. "Don't worry, I'm not a blabbermouth." Only then did Long Chen explain, "I want to borrow Lei Qianshang's thunder seed to refine my own thunder force." Tang Wana was completely appalled. "Are you crazy? How could that be possible?" "Why not?" Long Chen didn't understand. "Are you joking? Lei Qianshang has a bloodline inheritance that can use thunder force. Without that bloodline inheritance, the thunder force will only wreck your body. You can't possibly use it. That kind of thinking is completely crazy." "Is it really impossible?" asked Long Chen. "Of course. The violent thunder force will destroy your dantian. I'd advise you not to try. Although you are a dislikable man, your strength isn't bad. Dying would be too regretful." Tang Wana shook her head. Long Chen smiled. "I'm very moved you care so much about me, but I've decided to refine it." "Do you not care about your life?" Tang Wana became somewhat angry. "Didn't you say I was a bad person? A bad person won't die so easily." Long Chen smiled. Hearing Tang Wana explain had actually given him even greater confidence. Others might die, but he wouldn't. He didn't even have a dantian, so how could it be destroyed? If something would be destroyed, it would be his Feng Fu star. But to destroy the Feng Fu star? Long Chen didn't underestimate the Thunder Seed, but even if there were 10,000 of them, it would be impossible for them to destroy his Feng Fu star. "Sister Wana, you should hurry along. I'll prepare to refine it." "Just refine it here. I'll stick around. If you fail and are near death, I might be able to save you." Tang Wana shook his head. She found a place dozens of meters away to sit. Long Chen smiled slightly. Although Tang Wana had her savage side, she had a good heart. Slowly closing his eyes, he began to circulate his spiritual qi to refine the thunder force. Those strands of thunder force were wreaking havoc throughout his meridians as they wildly barged around his body. If it was an ordinary blood condensation cultivator's meridians, they would have long since been destroyed, causing them to become a cripple. But Long Chen's meridians had been changed by the spirit world expert. They were much wider and also much more tenacious. That thunder force was unable to cause much damage. That was also why Long Chen dared to do such a thing. Now the thunder force that was in his meridians had become his prey. Be refined for me. Long Chen snorted. His Feng Fu star swiveled. Enormous amounts of spiritual qi began to wildly pour into his meridians, squeezing the thunder force. Those strands of thunder force began to resist with all their might when they were squeezed by the spiritual qi. Within his meridians, those two began to crazily struggle. The thunder force became exceptionally violent as it resisted, wanting to break out of his meridians. But Long Chen's meridians were like tough tubing. No matter how the thunder force struggled, it wasn't the slightest bit effective. Under the steady flow of Long Chen's spiritual qi, the thunder force began to decompress together. But the thunder force was still doing its best to struggle, refusing to give up. Then let me add some more. The pill flame that was hidden within his meridians suddenly began to rage. With its addition, the thunder force was completely suppressed. At this time, the thunder force no longer had a source of energy. It was completely alone. Its violent nature gradually faded and it began to resist less and less. But this still wasn't enough. Long Chen increased his spiritual qi and pill flame, using them to scour his meridians, completely condensing all the thunder force in his body. This thunder force had been Lei Qianshang's. Now Long Chen completely eradicated his spiritual imprint on them, causing the thunder force to become ownerless. Then he placed his own imprint on it, making it his. To Long Chen, who had already refined a beast flame before, this wasn't difficult at all. The process was just somewhat troublesome. 6 hours later, Long Chen opened his eyes. Although he was clearly exhausted, he was also extremely excited. Chapter 148 Stealing Failure. When Long Chen opened his eyes, Tang Wan'er immediately noticed and asked, "How did it go?" Long Chen smiled slightly and raised a finger. With just a thought, his finger immediately became covered by thin bolts of thunder force, emitting a rumbling sound. Tang Wan'er covered her mouth, filled with disbelief. She had thought Long Chen's plan had been completely crazy and absolutely impossible. But now Long Chen was clearly using thunder force, meaning he had done what she had thought to be impossible. How is this possible? Tang Wan'er muttered to herself as she examined his finger that was covered with thunder force. How is it? Are you convinced? Remember to treat me better now, that way you'll be able to keep me firmly by your side. Of course, that's still not enough. If you really want to make our relationship more firm, you might consider other methods. For example, giving your heart to me, said Long Chen with a serious face. Do you think a rookie still at the mid-blood condensation is worthy of my heart? Have you still not woken up? Tang Wan'er raised her head disdainfully. Wait, how did you learn my cultivation base? Long Chen was startled. When you fought with Zhao Wu after he used his beast transformation, your aura leaked out. Although you hide it extremely well, you can't hide it from my senses. And I think it wasn't just me who sensed it. Lei Qianshang should also have noticed, lightly said Tang Wan'er. As expected of masterclass geniuses. Those kinds of senses are truly frightening, sighed Long Chen. In the future he would have to be even more careful. He didn't want to reveal his own cultivation base. That was because all the registrants were all at the peak of the late blood condensation realm. In other words, they were all at the 9th heaven stage. And the majority were already at the great circle of blood condensation and could step into the muscle rebirth realm at any time they wanted. They had merely used medicinal pills to suppress their cultivation base. Perhaps he was the only one who was merely at the 6th heaven stage. He didn't want to stand out too much. It was uncomfortable to be the center of attention. I'd say the monster would have to be you. You even have the ability to do such a heaven-defying thing. Tang Wan'er pointed to his finger. Although Tang Wan'er didn't want to praise him, she had no choice but to admit Long Chen had truly shocked her. He was actually able to steal someone else's core energy for his own use. That kind of ability was too shocking, perhaps even heaven-defying. Long Chen shook his head helplessly. What heaven-defying? It was still a failure. What? Didn't you condense your own thunder force? Tang Wan'er said in shock. Although I refined his thunder force, My own spiritual chi is unable to transform into more thunder force. In other words, all the thunder force I have is the thunder force sent to me by Lei Qiansheng. That means once I've used it all up, I'll need to find another source to replenish it. Basically, I wasted half a day's work and didn't get much of anything. It really is disheartening, he dejectedly explained. Thunder force was not the same as his flame energy. His spiritual chi was able to transform into flame energy. So as long as he had enough spiritual chi, he would never run out of flame energy. But his thunder force was not the same. Once it was used up, it would be gone forever. He would need to constantly find a source to absorb more. Perhaps he would have to often fight with Lei Qiansheng in the future. But of course, Lei Qiansheng also wasn't an idiot. Once time progressed, he would definitely suspect something. If he refused to fight Long Chen would only be able to run out of power. That was why Long Chen was so dejected. That wasn't the same at all with what he had been hoping for. His hope of using Thunder Force to temper his body had also failed. Actually, that's already extremely impressive for your body to be able to contain lightning and thunder. But I do have a way to resolve your current problem. Tang Wan'er smiled slightly. Really? Long Chen asked, surprised. Of course. As long as you go there, it'll resolve everything. Tang Wan'er pointed up to the sky. When a huge storm unfurls and lightning and thunder crash down, you can go up there and gather thunder force, huh? Tang Wan'er began to laugh. Long Chen disdainfully said, "Are you trying to make me receive heavenly punishment?" Of course not. I'm just very enthusiastic, and I'm definitely a specialist at flying kites. As long as you say a single word, I am definitely willing to help you fly up, laughed Tang Wan. Although she was laughing, Long Chen actually thought that was a good way to gather lightning. Seeing Long Chen was looking up into the sky and was thinking deeply, Tang Wan was startled and said, "I was just joking. You aren't really thinking of trying, are you?" Long Chen nodded. "Your method really is not bad. When I'm ready to test it, I'll definitely come find you." Dusting himself off, he began to collect some firewood. With a point of his hand, a spark shot out and immediately set the wood ablaze. "What do you think of doing?" asked Tang Wan. "I'm going to thank you for helping me. Although I didn't succeed, I still have to thank you and treat you to a meal," laughed Long Chen. Her face reddened. She knew he was talking about the matter of her giving him mouth-to-mouth. She both bashfully and angrily said, "Long Chen, if you mess around anymore, I won't forgive you. Don't worry, it will be our secret. I won't tell anyone even if they beat me to death," he solemnly swore. Although she felt as if he had said that weirdly, she saw that he was serious, and so she was relieved. Once the fire was started, it wasn't long before it became a blaze. Long Chen took out 10 wonder carps. "You actually have caught wonder carps?" Tang Wan'er was shocked. "Hee, this is nothing. Tomorrow I'll catch 2 dragons for you to eat with no problem." Long Chen took out a basin of water and began to scrub the wonder carps clean. He also took out their essence from their cheeks and put those beside the fire. What kind of big talk is that? Dragons are divine beasts in legends. Whether they exist or not is unknown. How are you planning on capturing them? People need dreams. What if one day you achieve it? So dreams are definitely a must-have. Otherwise, would there even be any joy in life? Asked Long Chen. Dreams and big talk are 2 different things. Don't mix the 2, defended Tang Wan. I won't talk to someone without a sense of humor. It really is tiresome. Long Chen shook his head and focused on cooking the fish. "You," Tang Wan frowned, but she then thought of something and sat down. "Long Chen, I've noticed you are extremely strange. Do you not know how to talk to others properly?" This question. Well, the crucial point is that I'd have to encounter a normal person first. "You scoundrel!" Tang Wan'er couldn't resist anymore and gave him rap on the head. "Are you saying I'm not a normal person?" Long Chen didn't retaliate or dodge. Letting her hit him, he turned to look at her. "Beautiful sister Tang Wan, do you feel you are normal right now?" She reddened and retorted, "I'm a very normal person. I only became like this because I encountered you." Well, the fish are done. Let's eat." Long Chen handed over a cooked wonder fish to her. When she took she immediately smelled its alluring smell and began to drool. Looking at Long Chen, she couldn't help feeling a bit bad. Just eat. Only once you eat will you have the energy to sort me out, joked Long Chen. She blushed and turned away, opening her mouth and taking a bite. She immediately exclaimed, "It's delicious. No wonder it's almost extinct in the human world. It's the first time I've tasted it." She was happily surprised. The wonder carp's great name was known to all, but as for the number of people who had actually eaten it, it was pitifully low. As I said, treat me better and you can eat it often. And if you want to give me your heart, then you'll have endless delicacies to eat. Long Chen was also eating, pleased with himself. That's a nice dream. Do you think all women are as easy to trick as you hope? Tang Wan'er had obviously already become accustomed to Long Chen's method of joking and no longer became angry. She gave him a cold retort as she continued eating. After eating one, she didn't wait on courtesy and grabbed a second one, eating it right in front of Long Chen without any bit of politeness. "Oh right, you can actually control flame energy. Are you a pill cultivator?" asked Tang Wan'er as she ate. "Yup, I'm a pill adept," he answered. "That's pretty good. Such a young pill adept definitely has a bright future. Why wouldn't you choose to refine pills and instead came on the path of cultivation?" Tang Wan'er asked, puzzled. "Do you think refining pills all day is interesting? The cultivation martial path is much more interesting. I can fight and pick up girls all day. Whoever I don't like I can kick away easily. And when I see a beautiful woman like you, I can perhaps take some liberties with her. That's how to live a life." "Scoundrel, you barely said a couple normal sentences before once more fooling around. Then does your pill cultivation master approve of you choosing the martial cultivation path?" she asked after rebuking him. Hearing that, Long Chen paused for a moment. Grandmaster Yun Qi's image floated into his mind. That last scene of Grandmaster Yun Qi transforming into ashes was still as fresh in his mind as if it had happened yesterday. He should approve. Long Chen shook his head. "What do you mean, should?" she said, dissatisfied. "That's because he's already dead, so I myself don't know his true thoughts." Long Chen smiled slightly, but his smile was somewhat mournful. Seeing that trace of sadness in Long Chen's eyes, Tang Wan'er's heart trembled. That was the first time she sensed the sorrow deep within his heart. "Okay, we've finished eating the fish. Remember, if you want to keep eating these fish, treat me a bit better in the future. I'll leave first." Long Chen stood up. Seeing Long Chen was about to leave, for some unknown reason she was somewhat disappointed inside. As for why, even she wasn't sure. "That's right, Long Chen, have you collected all the jade tiles?" "No." Long Chen shook his head. In any case, he had more than enough time, so he wasn't in a rush. At this time there were still many fragmented sets, and so it would be more troublesome to collect them all. "I have a full set here. I'll give it to you." Tang Wan'er handed Long Chen a tablet. Unlike his tile, this tablet had all 4 Tian, Di, Xian, Huang words on it. The 4 different tiles had merged into a single tablet and could no longer be separated. Long Chen smiled slightly and received it. "Ah, so this must be what it means to be kind, to be the one who pays for the meal. Okay, thank you. But don't think this small favor is enough for me to be unswervingly loyal to you. But if you want that, you can always try giving me your heart." "Get lost." Tang Wan'er was irritated again. Long Chen had only been normal for a moment before once again messing around. She sent a kick at Long Chen. Long Chen laughingly dodged her attack and disappeared from the valley in just a few moments. Seeing Long Chen disappear, Tang Wan'er's anger faded and she actually laughed. Sorting out her emotions, she also disappeared from the valley. Chapter 149. The Finch Follows from Behind. After Long Chen separated with Tang Wan'er, he used the tablet's map to figure out his location and pick out a new goal location. Currently he was still at the fringes of the trial region. According to the map, he needed to cross over a large river and pass by a large mountain before reaching the final destination of the trial. But less than a week had passed into the trial so far, so he still had more than ample time. So first he found an isolated cave and took out a wonder carp essence. The wonder carp essence was around the size of a soybean. It looked like nothing more than a round, unremarkable bone. Even if it was crushed, there weren't any clues as to what it really was. He took out a black medicinal pill from his spatial ring. Crushing it into a small bowl of water, the water immediately became black as ink. Placing the wonder carp essence into the bowl, that black medicinal liquid immediately began to boil over. Countless bubbles popped up, and a faint energy slowly spread. Longchen smiled. Only this method was capable of drawing out the wonder carp's essence energy. Touching his forehead, his spiritual strength circulated. A faint vortex appeared between his eyebrows, absorbing the fluctuations being emitted from the wonder carp essence, not leaving even the slightest bit. In just a single breath's time, all the wonder carp essence's energy was completely absorbed. Taking out the wonder carp essence from the bowl, he saw that it had already become much dimmer, in the end falling apart like a ball of mud. That showed that all the energy within the essence had been completely drawn out. Longchen closed his eyes and sensed his current state. His spiritual strength had advanced slightly from absorbing this wonder carp essence, but he couldn't be too sure about that because it really was just a slight, minor advancement. Over 20 wonder carp essences now appeared in his hand. These were the result of his 2 meals of wonder carps. Rumble. He placed them all into the bowl, causing the black liquid to once more boil. Powerful fluctuations began to surge. Longchen didn't dare be negligent, and the vortex over his forehead once more appeared, beginning to absorb this energy. This kind of energy was invisible to the naked eye. It could only be sensed with the soul. As he absorbed more and more energy, a pleased smile appeared on Longchen's face. With this many essences, Longchen could clearly sense a powerful energy nourishing his soul. His spiritual strength began much livelier. The wonder carp essence's energy didn't contain spiritual strength, but a kind of marvelous energy that could nourish the spirit. If the spiritual strength was a tree, then the wonder carp essence's energy was like fertilizer. Under the nourishment of this many wonder carp essence's energy, Longchen could clearly sense his spiritual strength slowly growing. Although this growth was slight, it still made him go wild with joy. Spiritual strength was something that was set once you were born. It would only ever advance when you broke through realms. Treasures that could nourish spiritual strength were exceedingly few, and treasures like the wonder carp essences were essentially unknown by others. They knew about its flavor, but they thought the wonder carp essence was just trash. It really was a pity. Unfortunately, this life ring is too low quality. Otherwise I could grab a couple extra and breed them over and over. Longchen couldn't help sighing regretfully. The wonder carp's reproductive ability had always been low, and they were extremely picky about their surroundings. They required a clean and natural environment. It was extremely difficult to breed them purposefully. And as for his current life ring, it could only just manage to keep them alive. It wasn't capable of letting them grow more, and so he was a bit disappointed. Although the wonder carp essence only offered a weak energy, it was extremely pure without any side effects. As long as he had enough numbers, he would be able to continuously nourish his soul. Grains of sand could eventually accumulate enough to make a tower. If he had enough time and enough wonder carps, his spiritual strength could continue growing stronger. To a pill cultivator, powerful spiritual strength was everything. The pool he had found the wonder carps in hadn't been very large. If Longchen had continued using his method of catching them, it wouldn't have been long before they were all gone. Perhaps if Longchen had really been planning on doing that, even the Xintian monastery wouldn't have permitted it. So he could only take things one step at a time. After absorbing the wonder carp essences, Longchen felt himself be refreshed and much livelier, taking a long stretch. He had also consumed a couple healing medicinal pills. The damage the Thunder Force had done to his body was mostly healed at this time. I should go take a stroll around. I can't waste the Xintian monastery's treasures. Long Chen left his cave and began to walk according to the map. On the way he saw quite a few registrants that were also searching around constantly like him. Obviously everyone had already begun to gather at the final location from the map. Most likely they were preparing to cross the first barrier, the huge river. When many people saw Long Chen, they couldn't help being nervous. But then seeing Long Chen didn't bother with them, they relaxed. "Didn't you hear? That guy killed one of Lei Qianshang's subordinates yesterday," whispered one. "I heard Zhao Wu was an extremely powerful figure and considered Lei Qianshang's right-hand man. Who would have thought such a person would die under Long Chen's hands? I heard that after Long Chen killed Zhao Wu, he didn't receive any punishment and was still allowed to continue the trial." People couldn't help sighing. Back then Long Chen had been riding his powerful mount and fought fiercely with Qi Exin. They had all thought he was just some spoiled brat relying on his family's power. His third-rank magical beast didn't represent he truly had any power. That was because true experts didn't need to bring powerful magical beasts to guard them. So they had never viewed Long Chen importantly. Long Chen is definitely a dark horse. I wonder if he can stand on par with the monster class experts, sighed one person. "'Tis just him? Who do you think he is to dare compare him to monster class experts? Didn't you hear he immediately coughed up blood after just one of Lei Qianshang's attacks? He's just bullying weaker people. In front of a monster class expert, he is unable to receive even a single blow," one person coldly snorted, obviously disdainful of Long Chen. Of course, Long Chen had no idea that the news of him killing Zhao Wu had already explosively spread. At this time, people already considered him to be the #1 figure below the monster class level. Walking over a mountain, he arrived at a flat plain. The huge trees had already disappeared from this region. Taking their place were endless shrubs. These shrubs were all several meters high. After walking in, it was incredibly easy to get lost. Long Chen looked around, determining his direction, and walked in. It was extremely difficult to walk through this place. There were many thorny thistles, and the majority were poisonous. Although they couldn't break through Long Chen's defense, it was still uncomfortable and tore through his clothes. A slight mistake caused a huge hole to tear in his clothes. If he didn't think of a method, perhaps just halfway through he would be streaking naked. Suddenly a figure rushed by Long Chen's side, causing him some surprise. Was this person so strong he didn't need to bother with the thorns? But then he immediately laughed when he saw that person. He was wearing a golden armor over his entire body. No wonder he wasn't afraid of the thorns. Long Chen shook his head. Searching his spatial ring, he found he really did have a couple sets of armor. Long Chen thanked that fellow who had thought of robbing him back then. These sets all came from him. He found a bronze set that fit him. Now with this bronze armor covering him, he wouldn't have to worry about these thorns. After thinking for a moment, he continued looking through his spatial ring and found a helmet for himself as well. Haha, excellent. This helmet was a full helmet that completely covered his head, leaving only 2 holes for his eyes. Even someone who knew him wouldn't be able to recognize him. If I want to commit some sins, having good tools is definitely a must. Long Chen was delighted. Putting on the helmet, he found that although his line of sight was somewhat restricted and it was a bit uncomfortable, it wasn't that difficult to get used to. He sent his divine sense to see things for him. He continued forward again. With this armor protecting him, he no longer worried about these thorns. This set of armor should weigh more than 150 kilograms. By relying on inertia, Long Chen could shoot forward like a cannonball. During that wild rush, even if he ran into some huge tree, he wouldn't have to dodge and could directly charge through it. How refreshing. That was the first time Long Chen experienced such a feeling. He felt as if his heart and spirit had been released and were flying. He enjoyed the thrill of this high-speed travel. Crap. While he was enjoying this refreshing feeling, he hadn't expected to run into 2 others. They were also wearing armor and charging forward. However, in his eyes, their speed was no different from a snail's. Get out of the way. I can't stop. Boom. Long Chen had only just shouted when he slammed into the 2 of them. Those two were immediately sent flying into the air, shouting in panic. With two loud bangs, those two crashed to the ground. Ached groans came from them as they rolled around completely battered. Sorry. This crash was definitely my fault. Long Chen was alarmed. Bastard, hand over your tile. Those two crawled up and angrily pointed at Long Chen. Taking off their helmets, he saw their hair was a complete mess and blood was flowing from their noses. There were even some bruises on their faces. He had definitely crashed into them too hard. Damn, it hurts. I can't even feel my nose. What are you just staring for? Hand over your tile. One person angrily shouted in between pained moans. Oh, I'm sorry. Junior only just began to practice this method and isn't too familiar. This tile will be my apology to you too. Long Chen definitely felt in the wrong and handed over his Tian tile to them. In any case, he already had a full set and he no longer had any use for it. The two of them continued cursing as they received the tile. Brat, this time your luck is good. Next time pay attention. Yes, next time I'll definitely pay more attention, laughed Long Chen. Okay, let's go. Boss Chi wants us to quickly gather. Don't delay Boss Chi's major affair. We'll just let this kid off this time, said one to the other, pulling on the other to quickly leave. After the two of them left, Long Chen was left wondering, Boss Chi? To be called boss, didn't that mean it was most likely a monster class figure, Chi Xins? Long Chen turned to look in the direction they were going. Hee, Chi Xian, let me see just what you are planning. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.